Chapter 322. Submit? Bah! Who would submit to a brat of unknown origin like you? Northwest General Hanyu knelt on the ground, his face full of anger. He was the Northwest General, an important official of a region. In the past, he could even ignore the orders of the imperial family. Today, he was defeated by a junior and forced to kneel in front of him. He felt extremely humiliated and angry at Chu Fengmian. Is that so? Since you don't want to submit, your position as the Northwest General will come to an end. Chu Fengmian looked at Hanyu and said calmly. Humph. Let's see how you'll make me the Northwest General. Hanyu looked at Chu Fengmian with disdain. He wouldn't be easily removed from his position as the Northwest General. In the Qin Shi Huang army, Chu Fengmian's words didn't matter. He wasn't afraid even if he was defeated. He didn't believe that Chu Fengmian would dare to do anything to him. If Chu Fengmian dared to do anything to him, the entire Northwest army would be thrown into chaos. It wasn't so easy to get rid of a high-ranking official like Hanyu, an important official of a region. That was why he was so fearless. Fine. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Chu Fengmian shook his head. His eyes were extremely cold. The spiritual energy in his body suddenly condensed into a giant dragon claw. It descended from the sky and blasted toward Hanyu. Chu Fengmian couldn't remove Hanyu from his position, but he didn't need to go through so much trouble. As long as he killed Hanyu, the Northwest Army's position would naturally become vacant. How dare you? How dare you kill someone in this camp? Are you out of your mind? One of the generals standing just below the three vice commanders suddenly roared furiously. An extremely sharp saber gleam suddenly spread out from his body. The entire camp seemed to have entered a world of saber radiance. Endless saber radiance completely destroyed Chu Fengmian's dragon claw. This man is the Northern General. Yi Gufan. He's the first among the Northern Generals. He's at the peak of the 5th tier of the Divine Power Realm. He's only below the 3 deputy commanders. He's the best friend of the Northwest General Hanyu. He never thought of disobeying the imperial orders. The Prince of Bloodkill's voice sounded in Chu Fengmian's mind. General Jianbei? It seems like all of you feudal officials are extremely arrogant. You've even started to form factions and disregard the imperial family's orders. Today, on the first day I became the Grand Commander, I will subdue all of you one by one and change the atmosphere of the Qin Shi Huang army. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly. He could also tell that the Qin Shi Huang army had already broken free from the imperial family's control. Each of the generals had formed their own cliques and kept each other in check. Now that Chu Fengmian wanted to deal with family Zhao, he also wanted to deal with the invincible army. He had to obtain the power of the Qin Shi Huang army. If Chu Fengmian became the Grand Commander and his subordinates all disobeyed his orders, that would be terrible. Today, Chu Fengmian was going to teach these people a lesson and make them submit obediently. Brat, it seems like you really think that you are the Grand Commander of the Qin Shi Huang army? Even if you have the position of Grand Commander, you still have to listen to us obediently and be our puppet. You still want to control our lives? Yi Gufan said disdainfully. You are just an outsider. You are not a member of the Qin Shi Huang army. How dare you dream of becoming the Grand Commander? If you are sensible today, we will give you some face and let you be a puppet Grand Commander. Oh? What if I don't listen to you? Chu Fengmian laughed loudly. Then this general will kill you today. I will hang your head in front of the camp and let the imperial family know that the Qin Shi Huang army is not something that an outsider can interfere with. Yi Gufan said coldly. Every word was filled with endless killing intent. Then I will see if the imperial family still dares to send people to die. Hang your head in front of the camp. Not bad. It's a good idea. However, the person who will be hung there is you. You dare to provoke the Grand Commander. You deserve to die. I will kill you and let the others know the consequences of disobeying orders. Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold. His body disappeared in an instant and turned into an ancient battle dragon. Suddenly, his whole body crashed toward Yi Gufan. Heavenly Dragon Smash. The collision shook the earth and the mountains. The most powerful thing about the ancient battle dragon was its physical body. Every move of the ancient battle dragon contained the essence of martial arts. It was comparable to the most powerful martial skills. Under the impact of the collision, Yi Gufan's body felt like it was going to explode. The force was so heavy that he could not withstand it for a while. Million blades. World of blades. Yi Gufan took the chance to catch his breath and unleash the power of his realm. The entire space turned into a world of blades. The ground was littered with countless sharp blades. The power of any one of these blades was no less than that of an earth-rank spiritual weapon. Even Yi Gufan had turned into a blade. He had truly used his body as a blade and had a deep understanding of the blade Tao. Using his body as a blade. Yi Gufan has reached this level. A blade cultivator who has reached this level no longer needs any spiritual weapons. Using his body as a blade is more suitable for him than any other spiritual weapons. Looks like Yi Gufan is about to break through to Divine Power Realm Level 6. Once he has mastered his body as a blade, he will be able to break through and be on the same level as the 3 deputy commanders. Yi Gufan's strength is much stronger than Hong Yu. I wonder who will win this battle. Yi Gufan is going to kill him. He is a blade cultivator. Once he wants to kill his opponent, the power of his blade will be several times stronger. I think this brat will be killed by him. But if this brat dies, our relationship with the imperial family will be strained. So what if it's strained? The imperial family is now fighting against family Zhao. They need our strength. If we kill this brat, the imperial family will not fall out with us. What's there to be afraid of? Countless spiritual consciousnesses flashed by and discussions broke out. Transforming into a blade? This kind of method was nothing more than a side branch. A true saber cultivator wouldn't even bother to use such a move. How dare you claim that you can kill me with just this move of yours? Chu Fengmian glanced at Yi Gufan and laughed. Break! The scarlet flame sword suddenly appeared in Chu Fengmian's hand. To resist Yi Gufan's blade, he needed something sharper. Chu Fengmian used his sword to resist Yi Gufan's blade. The battle between the blade and the blade had been going on since ancient times. Today, it was the real battle between the blade and the blade. With a slash of his sword, the endless blade was shattered. Thank you for the reward from the Kitchen Knife Gang. Thank you for your support. I have seen you reward me several times. Chapter 323. In the world of blades, there was a flash of sword light that cut off all the blade radiance. The flash of sword light cut off all the blade radiance in the world of blades as if there was no one there. The entire world of blades seemed to be unable to stop the flash of sword light. What a terrifying swordsmanship. Isn't he cultivating the Dragon Clan martial technique? How could he have such a terrifying swordsmanship? I can feel that his sword is much more powerful than his Dragon Clan martial technique. Could he be a sword cultivator? Where did he get such terrifying strength at such a young age? Not only did he learn so many Dragon Clan martial techniques, but he also possesses such a powerful swordsmanship. King Swordslayer, how is your swordsmanship compared to his? Some generals turned to look at one of the strategists. The strategist was a sword cultivator and his name was King Swordslayer. His swordsmanship was the best in the entire Qin Shi Huang army. Hence, when they saw Chu Fengmian's shocking swordsmanship, they turned to ask him about it. This man's swordsmanship is extremely terrifying. King Swordslayer's face changed when he saw Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship. His body trembled. As a sword cultivator, he naturally knew how terrifying Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship was. The swordsmanship looked ordinary, but he could not comprehend the mystery behind it. The gap between their attainments in swordsmanship was too huge. However, King Swordslayer knew that if he were to fight with Chu Fengmian, he would definitely be defeated by the swordsmanship. The battle between two sword cultivators was a battle of swordsmanship. There was nothing fancy about it. This man's swordsmanship? Is it enough to contend with you? One of the generals looked at King Swordslayer's expression and said in surprise. King Sword Slayer was a famous sword principle expert. He was considered a sword principle grandmaster in the entire Qin Shi Huang Empire. How old was Chu Fengmian? They could see that Chu Fengmian was at most in his early 20s. They had seen geniuses with extremely high cultivation levels before, because some monstrous geniuses with extremely high aptitudes could indeed soar to the heavens if they had a fortuitous encounter. They would have extremely terrifying strength at such a young age. However, the Tao of the sword was different. The Tao of the sword required a long period of comprehension. It wasn't something that could be comprehended overnight. Chu Fengmian was so young, how could he have such terrifying swordsmanship that he could contend against the Sword Slayer monarch? No, the Sword Slayer Lord's voice trembled slightly. Oh? If this kid's swordsmanship is on par with yours, then it is indeed a little too exaggerated. However, seeing that he was able to fight against Yi Gufan, I'm afraid his swordsmanship is not too bad. Hearing the Sword Slayer monarch's words, the general's expression relaxed a lot and he spoke. No. I'm saying that my swordsmanship is inferior to his. It can even be said that my sword Tao is completely incomparable to his. The Sword Slayer King said slowly. His heart was also under great pressure when he said these words. He was a sword Tao grandmaster in the Qin Empire. Today, he took the initiative to admit his inferiority in front of a junior, which was something that he couldn't accept. However, the truth was in front of him. His sword Tao was on a completely different level compared to Chu Fengmian's. There was no possibility of comparison. Far inferior. When the Sword Slayer King spat out those 4 words, everyone present was dumbfounded. Far inferior. This evaluation was something none of them had expected. In their estimation, it was already shocking that Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship could contend against the Sword Slayer monarch. However, the Sword Slayer King actually said that Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship was far inferior. Even if a Sword Tao Grandmaster from a high-tier kingdom were to come, the Sword Slayer King's evaluation would be slightly inferior. However, there had never been an evaluation that was far inferior. Sword Slayer King, is what you said true? Hearing the Sword Slayer King's words, Deputy Commander Bai couldn't help but turn his head and ask. That's right. My swordsmanship is indeed far inferior to his. He is more terrifying than any Sword Tao Grandmaster that I have ever seen. The Sword Slayer King said slowly. What will happen in the battle between him and Yi Gufan? Another general asked. I'm afraid that Yi Gufan will lose, and he will lose miserably. The Sword Slayer King said word by word. This level of swordsmanship was definitely not something that Yi Gufan could withstand. After saying that, the Sword Slayer King didn't say anything else. He focused on watching Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship. Every time he saw such a fearsome swordsmanship, he would learn a lot from it. The others present also looked at Chu Fengmian. They didn't believe the Sword Slayer King's words. They had to see with their own eyes how powerful Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship was. Yi Gufan, who was fighting against Chu Fengmian in the Blade World, was sweating profusely. Oppression. He had never thought that he would be oppressed to such an extent. Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship was deadly. His saber radiance was actually far inferior to Chu Fengmian's. His thousands of saber radiance were all shattered by Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship. Suddenly, Yi Gufan's expression changed. He gritted his teeth and spat out a large amount of blood essence from his mouth. This was the blood essence of a saint. Yi Gufan's origin energy. Once the saint's blood essence was spat out, it burned fiercely in the Blade World. Blood sacrifice to the saber. Ancient sacrificial art. He burned his own origin energy to enhance the power of his saber. Shakyamuni's cleaving saber. Yi Gufan turned into a saber and slashed at Chu Fengmian with a terrifying saber that pierced through the Blade World. This move was truly a supreme killing move. It was the culmination of Yi Gufan's lifetime saber intent. He was going to kill Chu Fengmian with this move even if he had to sacrifice his origin energy. Your fighting spirit is commendable. However, it's a pity that no matter how strong your saber is, it can't shake my sword. Chu Fengmian looked at Yi Gufan's actions and said coldly. Endless killing intent burst out from Chu Fengmian's body. Blood qi wrapped around the blade in Chu Fengmian's hand. Slaughtering swordsmanship. Thousands of feet of blood qi turned into a sharp blood mark and slashed at Yi Gufan. In front of this blood mark, Yi Gufan's saber shattered bit by bit. The entire blade world exploded. Under Chu Fengmian's slaughtering swordsmanship, Yi Gufan's strength was no match for Chu Fengmian. Hiss! A head flew out and was caught by Chu Fengmian. It was Yi Gufan's head. Today's 5th update. Chapter 324. Chu Fengmian's sword was too fast and terrifying. Before the countless experts present could react, Yi Gufan had already been killed by Chu Fengmian. He had fallen. Yi Gufan was one of the 12 garrison generals. He was at the peak of the 5th level of the Divine Power Realm and was close to the 6th level of the Divine Power Realm. Yet, he was killed by Chu Fengmian. The result was beyond everyone's expectation. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts when they saw Yi Gufan flying away. Chu Fengmian's strength was like a miracle. How could a 5th level of the Imperial Wind Realm kill a 5th level Divine Power Realm saint? No one knew what was going on, but none of them dared to look down on Chu Fengmian anymore. Being able to kill Yi Gufan, Chu Fengmian's strength had surpassed most of the people present. He was only below the 3 vice commanders. Who else doesn't want to submit? Chu Fengmian raised Yi Gufan's head and shouted coldly. Yi Gufan provoked Chu Fengmian continuously and even tried to stop him, wanting to make him his puppet. Such a person must be killed. Only by killing him could he intimidate these people. What should we do? Do we have to submit to him? If we submit to such a junior, we won't have any face left in the Qin Empire. But this kid is ruthless. Even Yi Gufan was killed by him. If we go against him, I'm afraid we'll end up like Yi Gufan. The garrison generals and the 4 strategists discussed with each other using their spiritual awareness. They were unwilling to submit to Chu Fengmian, but none of them dared to stand out and go against Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's killing of Yi Gufan was indeed a warning to others. Yi Gufan had died at Chu Fengmian's hands. If they still dared to resist Chu Fengmian, they would probably end up like Yi Gufan. Everyone present had gone through untold hardships to reach the Saint Realm. No one wanted to die. I'm willing to submit. One of the 4 strategists, Swordslayer King, walked out and knelt in front of Chu Fengmian. I'm willing to submit to an expert. He was deeply impressed by Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship. I'm willing to submit to the Grand Commander. I only hope that the Grand Commander can teach me some sword techniques. Good, Swordslayer Monarch, you are indeed a smart person. You will definitely rejoice over your decision in the future. Chu Fengmian looked at King Swordslayer and threw out Yi Gufan's head. Swordslayer Monarch, hang this head in the camp and tell the others the consequences of disobeying orders. The position of Northern General is still vacant. You can take it. Yes. The Swordslayer Monarch retreated with a joyful expression. The Northern Field Marshal had a much higher status than a strategist like him. Although a strategist's status was high, he didn't have any real power. The Northern Field Marshal was someone who commanded an army. He had just joined Chu Fengmian, and Chu Fengmian had already given him such benefits, which made the Swordslayer King overjoyed. Where are the others? Are you willing to submit? Chu Fengmian's eyes swept across the countless people present. His face was extremely cold, and his words were filled with killing intent. Chu Fengmian could see that each of them had their own plans, but it was impossible for them to play such tricks in front of Chu Fengmian. I'm also willing to submit. Han Yu, who was kneeling on the ground, stammered as he spoke. Yi Gufan's death had deeply shaken him. There was a huge gap between his strength and Yi Gufan's. If he didn't know what was good for him and submit now, he was afraid that his head would be hung in the camp just like Yi Gufan's head. Good. Since you are willing to submit, then your previous offense against me will be written off. However, since you had the intention to rebel, I will plant a seal on your body. Chu Fengmian glanced at Han Yu and said coldly. He raised his palm and a black seal was suddenly implanted into Han Yu's body. Zhu Tian's seal of death was firmly engraved on Han Yu's body, making him unable to resist Chu Fengmian. Yes, I will do my best to assist the commander and command the entire army. Han Yu stood up and spoke respectfully. Then, he obediently withdrew. Seeing the seal on Han Yu's body, the expressions of the others present turned ugly. Many of them wanted to submit after seeing the Sword Slayer King surrender and the benefits Chu Fengmian had given him. However, when they saw the seal on Han Yu, they changed their minds and didn't want to submit. Once the seal was planted, their lives would be under Chu Fengmian's control. Although they couldn't be considered slaves, it was still extremely humiliating. They were all used to being free and unrestrained. They originally thought that even if Chu Fengmian became the commander, they could still disobey his orders and ignore him. However, once the seal was planted, they would no longer have a choice. What? Are the others not going to submit? Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold, and his words contained some anger. It was as if he was an ancient war dragon that would be enraged at any time. It made one's heart turn cold. Young man, although your strength isn't bad, your character is too unyielding and arrogant. Such a character isn't enough to command the entire army. A vice commander stepped forward and spoke all of a sudden. When the deputy commander stood out, the gazes of the other guarding generals couldn't help but look at him. They couldn't contend against Chu Fengmian. The only ones who could were the 3 deputy commanders present. The 3 deputy commanders had been fighting for the position of the commander for a long time. Now, the 3 of them definitely wouldn't allow an outsider to command them. Martial God Tai. He's the deputy commander of the Qin Shi Huang army, known as the Martial God. He's extremely strong. 100 years ago, he stepped into the 6th level of the divine power realm. Now, he's probably approaching the peak of the 6th level of the divine power realm. He's not easy to deal with. Prince Blood Massacre hurriedly reminded with his spiritual consciousness. His words showed that he was extremely afraid of the martial god Tai. The martial god Tai had a high reputation in the Qin Shi Huang army. However, if Chu Fengmian couldn't pass him, he wouldn't be able to take the position of the commander. Martial God Tai, it's not up to you whether I can command the entire army or not. What? Do you think that you're more suitable for this position than I am? Chu Fengmian looked at the martial god Tai and said with a laugh. Considering that you've made great contributions in the Qin Shi Huang army, I'll give you a chance to fulfill your wish. As long as you can defeat me, I'll agree to let you take the position of the great commander of the Qin Shi Huang army. What do you think? Today, there's a total of 6 chapters. I'll continue to update tomorrow. Xiao Yu had tried his best to write as much as he could, and he had written as much as he could. Chapter 325. Chu Fengmian laughed out loud. He naturally knew what Tai Army God was thinking. Tai Army God had always wanted to be the Grand Commander. Now that Chu Fengmian intended to subdue Tai Army God, why not give him the opportunity? Chu Fengmian wanted to subdue Tai Army God wholeheartedly. After all, the Qin Shi Huang army needed someone to lead it. Are you serious? The expression of the god of war Tai instantly changed and became much more serious. He had been coveting the position of Grand Commander for a long time. Now that the opportunity was placed in front of him, it was simply at his fingertips. He had observed Chu Fengmian's strength just now. Although Chu Fengmian was powerful, Chu Fengmian was still not his opponent. The 6th level of divine power realm was already one of the best among the saints. His strength had already surpassed the ordinary saints. Tai Army God was able to become the vice commander not only because of his ability to lead the army, but also because of his formidable strength. My words are naturally true. As long as you can defeat me, there is no harm in giving you the position of Grand Commander. Chu Fengmian looked at Tai Army God and laughed out loud. But if you lose, you will have to submit obediently. Humph. If this old man is defeated, I will submit willingly. So what if I become your subordinate? Tai Army God snorted coldly. His words were full of confidence. He was a famous expert. If he could not even deal with Chu Fengmian today, he would not be worthy of the title of Tai Army God. All right. After saying that, Chu Fengmian slowly stood up. An extremely tyrannical force suddenly burst out from his body. This force caused Chu Fengmian's realm to rise steadily. The power of the ancient battle dragon's blood essence and the battle dragon's secret art were pushed to the extreme. At the same time, a terrifying sword intent and terrifying killing intent were added to Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian had already displayed all of his strength. The aura on his body was much more terrifying than when he killed Yi Gufan. What? His strength has become much more tyrannical? When he killed Yi Gufan, he was still holding back his strength. 5th level of the Imperial Wind Realm. He is really a warrior of the Imperial Wind Realm. How could he possess such a terrifying power? Such a monstrous talent should not appear in this world. Not to mention our Qin Empire, even in the most advanced countries, there is no such terrifying genius. The onlookers were so scared that they almost fainted. Chu Fengmian's ability to kill Yi Gufan was already enough for them to acknowledge his strength. However, the strength that Chu Fengmian had displayed was actually much stronger than when he had killed Yi Gufan. Such terrifying strength was possessed by a junior at the 5th level of the Imperial Wind Realm. This was simply unimaginable. It was impossible to imagine that there was such a figure in the 9 regions. Good lad, your strength is indeed more terrifying than what this old man had imagined. The Tai War god looked at Chu Fengmian with a grave expression, but deep down, he was still brimming with confidence. He refused to believe that he would lose to Chu Fengmian. Be careful. I won't hold anything back. The Tai War god shouted. His flesh and blood swelled up. Suddenly, it was as if an endless battle intent had been added to the Tai War god's body. The aura of the war god Tai was like that of an army of millions, majestic to the extreme. He was known as the war god. He had led troops to war and experienced countless bloody battles. His entire being was born for war. He was like a real invincible war god. Boundless heaven and earth. The boundless spiritual energy suddenly condensed and crazily rushed towards Chu Fengmian. The boundless heaven and earth was a move that the Tai War god had comprehended himself. It was a terrifying martial skill that he had comprehended after experiencing countless bloody battles. Its power was extremely terrifying. Although it was not the most powerful martial skill, it was the most suitable martial skill for the Tai War god. In the hands of the Tai War god, it could unleash the most powerful power, comparable to a heaven-level martial skill. The move, coupled with the Tai War god's boundless military aura, was simply terrifying to the extreme. Fighting against the Tai War god was like fighting against thousands of soldiers and horses. The power was so strong that no end could be seen, causing despair to rise in people's hearts. This was a martial artist who was born for war. This move was the Tai War god's most powerful move. Chu Fengmian's trump card was really unfathomable. Even the Tai War god could not see through Chu Fengmian's trump card. Instead of being entangled with Chu Fengmian, it was better to use his strongest killing move, intending to defeat Chu Fengmian in one move. Worthy of being the Tai War god. Chu Fengmian looked at the Tai War god's move and praised in his heart. The Tai War god was indeed worthy of the title of war god. Chu Fengmian understood that the Tai War god was the real war god. The boundless heaven and earth was like tens of thousands of iron cavalry, rushing towards Chu Fengmian at the same time. No matter how strong a person was, he could not contend against tens of thousands of iron cavalry. However, Chu Fengmian was not a human. His bloodline was the bloodline of the ancient war dragon. The current Chu Fengmian was a real ancient war dragon. Humans could not contend against it, but in front of an ancient war dragon, no matter how many armies there were, they were just ants. Dragon conquers the world. Chu Fengmian's figure moved. The sword in his hand was wrapped with endless dragon aura, and he suddenly slashed out. This sword contained the might of the war dragon. It was like a war dragon, fighting with tens of thousands of iron cavalry. The iron cavalry's strength was amazing, but it still could not shake a real war dragon. The boundless heaven and earth of the Tai War god was completely neutralized by Chu Fengmian's sword. Humph! The Tai war god snorted coldly after his move was neutralized, but suddenly, he struck out another move. The Tai war god was a person who had seen all kinds of big scenes. After losing a move, he quickly adjusted and blasted another move towards Chu Fengmian. In a war, the momentum of the army could not be weak. Once the momentum was lost, the army would naturally be routed. The martial Tao of the Tai war god was no different from the true martial Tao of war. Even if he lost for a while, he must muster enough momentum to reverse the situation in one fell swoop. Invincible Overlord. As the Tai war god roared, another wave of majestic power blasted towards Chu Fengmian. If the boundless heaven and earth last time was the attack of tens of thousands of iron cavalry, then this time, it was a real army with thousands of men and horses, rushing towards Chu Fengmian. No matter how powerful the existence was, it was impossible to contend against a real army with thousands of men and horses. No matter how strong the army is, it can't be without dragons. Today, I will capture you, dragon. Let's see how much of your supreme military might can be displayed. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. He took a step forward, and his whole body turned into a phantom. In a flash, he approached the Tai war god. Today's first update. Although it will be later. But I will not miss any updates. Don't worry. Chapter 326. To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. The greatest weakness of the war god Tai's Tao of war was himself. If Chu Fengmian continued to fight the war god Tai's Tao of war, he wouldn't be defeated, but he would never be able to defeat the war god Tai. That was why the war god Tai was so strong. In a direct confrontation, he was comparable to a saint in the 7th level of the God Force realm. Therefore, Chu Fengmian reacted quickly. He took a step forward and closed in on the war god Tai, intending to capture the war god Tai. Battle Heavenly Axe. The war god Tai's expression didn't change as he watched Chu Fengmian approach. His right hand formed an axe, and he swung it down, intending to crush Chu Fengmian to pieces. However, a stone steel suddenly appeared in Chu Fengmian's hand. Infused with spiritual power, the steel grew larger. Boom! 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 Immediately, an extremely powerful energy burst out from the stone tablet. The monolith was so powerful that even Tai Junshin didn't expect it. His body couldn't resist it, and he was sent flying. The rich lush steel. Chu Fengmian had no intention of using the rich lush steel, but the war god Tai's strength was too terrifying. If he wanted to defeat the war god Tai, he would have to achieve a complete victory. Only then would he be able to intimidate the experts of the Qin Imperial Army. The rich lush steel was Chu Fengmian's trump card, something he didn't want to use casually. But now that he had the remains of an extreme Dao immortal weapon, as well as the strange jar, it was definitely stronger than the rich lush steel. Since there was no need to hide it, Chu Fengmian decided to use the rich lush steel to intimidate the war god Tai. Not good. The war god Tai screamed. The sudden appearance of the rich lush steel was definitely beyond his expectations. He had already guessed that Chu Fengmian would choose to fight him, so he prepared his spiritual power to take advantage of the opportunity to defeat Chu Fengmian. However, the rich lush steel's appearance was completely unexpected. In the face of the rich lush steel's absolute power, the war god Tai's strength was easily defeated. This caused all the plans he had in his mind to go up in smoke. His entire body was sent flying, and a few drops of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. I've lost. The Tai war god looked at Chu Fengmian and sighed. Truth be told, he hadn't used the full power of the rich lush tombstone just now. Otherwise, there was no way the Titan war god would have been able to defend himself against the power of the rich lush tombstone. Now, he was only slightly injured, and that was because Chu Fengmian had shown mercy. Naturally, the Tai army god was also aware of this, so of course he admitted defeat. Defeated, even the Tai war god was defeated. The faces of the generals below all turned pale. Chu Fengmian was indeed terrifying enough to defeat the war god of Tai. This kind of strength had indeed surpassed everyone present. Who else could contend against Chu Fengmian when even the Tai military god had been defeated? The strength of the other two vice commanders was also on par with the Thai army god. Since the Thai army god had suffered a crushing defeat, the two of them would not fare any better. Who else? Unwilling to submit? Chu Fengmian sat on his golden throne and swept his gaze over the countless people present. Everyone who met his gaze felt a chill in their hearts. They understood that this was Chu Fengmian's final warning. Given his personality, if anyone refused to submit, he would definitely kill them all. Those who submitted to him would prosper, and those who opposed him would perish. Since Chu Fengmian wanted to assume the position of Grand Marshal of the Qin Imperial Army, he naturally wouldn't allow anyone to go against his will. Anyone who dared to disobey would have to die. We are willing to submit. We will follow the Grand Marshal. The remaining generals and strategists looked at each other, then simultaneously knelt on the ground and shouted, "Let's do this." They had pinned all their hopes on the war god of Tai. Since the war god had been defeated, they no longer had the confidence to resist Chu Fengmian. One by one, they knelt on the ground to express their allegiance. The war god of Tai, Lord Swordslayer, and Hong Yu had long since knelt on the ground. As for the two vice commanders, after a moment of hesitation, they too knelt and chose to submit. All the experts of the Qin Imperial Army had submitted. Young Master Chu was really brave. The Prince of Bloodkill, who was standing aside, was so excited that he almost went crazy when he saw this scene. The Qin Imperial Army was a big problem for the imperial family. The position of Grand Marshal had always been vacant. Moreover, there were countless experts who didn't follow the imperial family's orders. Chu Fengmian's arrival had solved their biggest problem. How could the Prince of Bloodkill not be excited? Good. Since all of you have chosen to submit, I will give you a gift for our first meeting. Chu Fengmian's mind flickered, and more than 20 drops of golden blood were condensed. They flew toward each of the people present. Fuse this drop of blood into your bloodline, and it will bring you incomparably great benefits. Consider it a greeting gift from me to everyone present. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and all the golden blood flew out and fused with their bodies. At first, everyone present was extremely resistant to the golden blood entering their bodies. However, when they felt the earth-shaking changes in their bodies, their faces completely changed. When the drop of golden blood fused with their bodies, it actually improved their physiques, and even made their martial arts progress. Every drop of golden blood was the ancient war dragon's blood essence. If it was in the past, Chu Fengmian would need to rest for a long time to recover. However, Chu Fengmian's realm had improved, and there were 300 drops of ancient war dragon's blood essence in his body. Even if he lost more than 20 drops, he could quickly recover them. The real dragon's blood essence was a treasure that warriors yearned for. It could improve their realm, improve their physique, and prolong their lifespan. There were simply too many benefits to count. The golden blood that Chu Fengmian condensed was the ancient war dragon's blood essence, which was countless times more superior than the real dragon's blood essence. The real dragon's blood essence was like trash in front of Chu Fengmian's blood essence. This drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence was much more useful than any treasure to them. However, the ancient war dragon's blood essence was not that easy to obtain. The ancient war dragon's blood essence had fused with the blood of all the experts present. As long as they had the intention to rebel, Chu Fengmian would directly activate the power of the ancient war dragon's blood essence, and make them explode one by one. However, if they did not have the intention to rebel and were loyal to Chu Fengmian, then the ancient war dragon's blood essence would indeed be endlessly beneficial to them. Second update for today. Thank you for love. Protect in the rain for a lifetime. Spirit of the wind, reward bravely. Chapter 327. Thank you for your kindness, great commander. We'll follow you loyally. Thai army god shouted, his voice filled with loyalty. Originally, he was still resentful after serving Chu Fengmian. However, after obtaining the ancient battle dragon's essence blood, all his resentment disappeared, leaving only endless gratitude and loyalty. Thai army god had lived for 1,000 years. He was already very old, and his lifespan was already nearing its end. He would probably die in less than 100 years. But now, after the ancient battle dragon's essence blood fused with his bloodline, his body's vitality was restored, and his lifespan increased by several times. This made Tai Army God feel the hope of a breakthrough. Even if he couldn't cross the life and death calamity and enter the life and death realm, as long as he reached the peak of the Saint realm, his lifespan would increase by another 1,000 years. How could Tai Army God not be grateful to Chu Fengmian? Now, Chu Fengmian had given him a second life. He had no way of repaying such a benefit, and could only pledge his loyalty. Tai Army God was not the only one who had obtained benefits. Everyone present had obtained the benefits of the ancient battle dragon's essence blood, and their faces lit up with excitement. This was only a temporary effect. The benefits of the ancient battle dragon's essence blood were far from just this. Killing Mi Gufan was supposed to weaken the overall strength of Qin Shi Huang army, but now, with the tempering of the ancient battle dragon's essence blood, everyone's strength had risen to another level. The overall strength of Qin Shi Huang army had risen even more than before, not to mention the addition of a great commander like Chu Fengmian. We're willing to pledge our loyalty to great commander. The rest of the people present also reacted one by one. One by one, they knelt on the ground and shouted. This time, they weren't forced to do so, but from the bottom of their hearts. Chu Fengmian understood the principle of using both kindness and severity. All right, everyone, please sit down. Although I've come to Qin Shi Huang army to assume the position of great commander, the management of Qin Shi Huang army will still be in the hands of everyone present. I won't interfere. Chu Fengmian looked at the row of thrones below and said calmly. Although Chu Fengmian had taken up the position of Grand Commander, he was not in the mood to manage such an army. The Qin Shi Huang army had millions of soldiers. Managing each and every one of them was extremely troublesome. Chu Fengmian did not have the time for that. He controlled the Qin Shi Huang army so that when they were dealing with family Zhao's invincible army in the future, the Qin Shi Huang army would go all out. As for the rest, Chu Fengmian didn't care at all. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, everyone's face lit up. Chu Fengmian did not interfere in the management, which meant that they still had power. Naturally, they were overjoyed. In this way, although Chu Fengmian had become the Grand Commander, it wouldn't affect them in the slightest. This was naturally what they hoped for the most. Right now, the members of the Qin Shi Huang army are training and preparing to fight against the invincible army. Chu Fengmian said calmly. He did not hide the fact that his greatest enemy was family Zhao. If he wanted to deal with family Zhao, he would have to deal with the invincible army first. Yes. Everyone shouted in unison. All right, Sword Slayer Monarch, you stay. The rest of you can leave. Chu Fengmian said calmly. The saints on the thrones left one after another, leaving only Sword Slayer Monarch and Prince of Blood Kill behind. Sword Slayer Monarch, you want to learn my swordsmanship? Chu Fengmian looked at Sword Slayer Monarch and said calmly. Sword Slayer Monarch was the first one to submit because he was the first one to see how powerful Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship was. He was subdued by Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship and only wanted to follow Chu Fengmian and improve his swordsmanship. Chu Fengmian naturally wouldn't mistreat such a smart person who knew how to adapt to circumstances. Yes, Grand Commander, please give me some pointers. Sword Slayer Monarch knelt on the ground and said in a deep voice. Please grant my wish, Grand Commander. All right, since you're the first one to submit, I'll agree to your request. Stand up and use your strongest swordsmanship to slash at me. Chu Fengmian looked at Sword Slayer Monarch and said calmly. Sword Slayer Monarch was also a genius swordsman. In Chu Fengmian's opinion, he was at least a talented person. However, in a small place like the Qin Empire, his swordsmanship had reached a bottleneck. If he didn't have the guidance of a stronger swordsman, he wouldn't be able to improve much in his lifetime. Today, he met Chu Fengmian and was willing to submit to Chu Fengmian. It could be said that they were fated. Chu Fengmian planned to teach Sword Slayer Monarch a move or two. As for how much he could comprehend, it wasn't Chu Fengmian's concern. Yes. Sword Slayer Monarch stood up with a joyful expression. He looked at Chu Fengmian and unsheathed his sword. Suddenly, a sharp sword intent was condensed. Swordslayer Monarch's sword intent was extremely sharp. If it was too hard, it would break easily. However, a truly ferocious sword intent was also very powerful. Even if he were to encounter a powerful warrior, he would still have the power to fight. Draw your sword. Chu Fengmian sat on the golden throne and said calmly. He didn't condense any spiritual energy on his body as he sat quietly on the golden throne. Yes. Looking at Chu Fengmian sitting on the golden throne, Swordslayer Monarch's heart was filled with anger. After all, he was an expert in the sword Dao. Since when was he looked down upon like this? Chu Fengmian's action was as if he didn't put him in his eyes. His sword flashed and his whole body seemed to have become one with the sword. Fleeting sword. This sword was extremely fast. In an instant, the sword was aimed at Chu Fengmian's throat. It was an absolute killing move. Not bad. Chu Fengmian looked at Swordslayer Monarch's sword and couldn't help but nod. Swordslayer Monarch didn't disappoint Chu Fengmian. He was already considered a genius in the sword Dao to be able to comprehend such a state. However, this level of sword technique was like a child's play in Chu Fengmian's eyes. His praise was only for the younger generation. It was impossible for this level of sword technique to hurt Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's finger lightly pointed and there was a trace of sword intent on his finger. However, this finger pointed at the weakest point of Swordslayer Monarch's sword and the sword in his hand flew out. For a swordsman, losing the sword meant that he had lost. A swordsman who lost his sword would have his strength greatly reduced. If Swordslayer Monarch was forced to withdraw his sword, he would be a dead man in a real battle. Prince of Bloodkill, who was watching from the side, was stunned to the extreme. He had heard about Swordslayer Monarch's sword technique. His strength was on par with Swordslayer Monarch's, but he could only retreat and didn't dare to resist Swordslayer Monarch's sword technique. Chapter 328. The Swordslayer King didn't hold back at all. It was truly his strongest move. But now, the Swordslayer King's strongest move was easily neutralized by Chu Fengmian. It could even be said that Chu Fengmian did not really make a move. He only sat on the golden throne and slightly pointed his finger to neutralize the Swordslayer King's strongest move. This kind of strength was simply astounding. Even if the number one expert of the Qin Empire, Zhao Wudi, was here, he might not be able to neutralize the Swordslayer King's move so easily. However, only Chu Fengmian and the Swordslayer King could understand the mystery of the move. As for the Prince of Bloodkill, he could only watch the show. The fight between sword cultivators was naturally decided in one move. The sword principle of both sides could be seen in one move. The place where Chu Fengmian pointed his finger was the weakest point of the Swordslayer King's sword principle. Naturally, Chu Fengmian could easily neutralize the move. Your sword principle has gradually matured. You can't learn my sword principle. Chu Fengmian looked at the Swordslayer King and said without hiding anything. The Swordslayer King had already formed his own sword principle. It was impossible for him to learn Chu Fengmian's sword principle. Hearing this, the Swordslayer King sighed slightly and felt a little disappointed. However, this was within his expectations. I am satisfied that the great commander can give me some pointers. The Swordslayer King looked at Chu Fengmian and knelt before him again. He had just experienced Chu Fengmian's sword principle. It was much stronger than any sword principle grandmaster that he had ever met. To be able to receive pointers from Chu Fengmian, it would be beneficial for him for life. Your swordsmanship is one of the strongest and most unyielding swordsmanship. It's completely different from my swordsmanship. I can't really give you any pointers. However, these are some of my swordsmanship insights that I once casually wrote down. Chu Fengmian pondered and waved his hand. A wave of spiritual consciousness entered the Swordslayer King's mind. Among them was Chu Fengmian's sword principle comprehension. Although his sword principle was different from the Swordslayer King's, it was still useful to the Swordslayer King. Thank you, Grand Commander. I am willing to serve you as my master and follow you. Seeing Chu Fengmian's comprehension of the way of the sword slayer king became extremely excited and shouted loudly. The comprehension of sword Dao was the most precious thing to any sword cultivator. No sword Dao grandmaster would impart it. Now that Chu Fengmian had given such a precious sword Dao comprehension to the sword slayer king, he was extremely excited and wanted to serve Chu Fengmian as his master. Following Chu Fengmian was a true wise master with a bright future ahead of him. There's no need for you to acknowledge me as your master. This sword Dao comprehension is indeed not something too precious. You can take a look at it yourself. Chu Fengmian said calmly. Although the sword Dao comprehension was precious, Chu Fengmian didn't mind giving it away. Chu Fengmian was not one of those swordsmanship grandmasters who hid their skills every day. Those people were stuck in a rut and could not improve their swordsmanship. Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship could reach the peak because he did not care about these things. Prince of Bloodkill, let's stay here for a few days and reorganize. We'll set off in a few days. Chu Fengmian glanced at Prince of Bloodkill and said. Prince of Bloodkill was extremely familiar with the Qin Empire. He could introduce many experts in the Qin Empire to Chu Fengmian. It was quite useful. Of course, he would not let Prince of Bloodkill leave now. Set off? Where to? Isn't the Qin Empire's army ready? Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Prince of Bloodkill was puzzled. Now, Chu Fengmian had made all the experts in the Qin Empire's army submit to him and become the commander of the army. Logically speaking, everything should be ready. However, from Chu Fengmian's words, it seemed that Chu Fengmian had other plans. Reorganizing the Qin Empire's army is just the first step. Is the Qin Empire's army enough to deal with family Zhao? Chu Fengmian looked at Prince of Bloodkill and said with a smile. Family Zhao's invincible army is not that easy to deal with. What's Master Chu's plan? Prince of Bloodkill hesitated for a while and asked. To contend with the invincible army, the Qin Empire's army alone was not enough. After all, the invincible army was the strongest of the three armies. However, apart from the Qin Empire's army, the imperial family did not have any other army they could use. The Destruction Army had always been neutral. Now, they were even supporting family Zhao. It was impossible for them to help the imperial family. Chu Fengmian said with a cold smile. Of course I'm going to the Destruction Army. Master Chu wants to rope in the Destruction Army? Impossible. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Prince of Bloodkill shook his head and said. Those old foxes of the Shatter Legion are a bunch of old foxes. They never do things that don't benefit them. Plus, young Master Chu cut off one of Yuan Kun's arms. As the vice commander of the Shatter Legion, he must hate young Master Chu to the bone. It's impossible to rope in the Destruction Army now. Prince of Bloodkill shook his head. The imperial family had tried many times to rope in the Destruction Army, but all of them had failed. Moreover, family Zhao was very powerful now. The Destruction Army was already on family Zhao's side. It was meaningless to rope in the Destruction Army now. Who said I'm going to rope in the Destruction Army? Those people from the Shatter Legion aren't qualified for me to recruit. Chu Fengmian said with a confident smile. I'm going to make the Destruction Army surrender completely. What? Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Prince of Bloodkill could not believe his ears. Chu Fengmian's words were extremely arrogant. Make the Annihilation Legion submit? The Destruction Army was more powerful than the Qin Empire's army. Furthermore, it wasn't as simple as the Qin Shi Huang army to make the Shatter Legion submit, because the Shatter Legion had a Grand Commander. Master Chu, don't joke. If the Destruction Army was so easy to deal with, they would have been conquered by family Zhao long ago. Prince of Bloodkill said with a serious face. The commander of the Destruction Army, Ao Zhenyuan, is a saint at the 7th level of the Divine Power Realm. Only a saint at the peak of the Divine Power Realm can defeat him. In the Qin Empire, he is almost invincible. No one dares to provoke him. Even family Zhao's people can't deal with him. It's impossible to defeat him. So what? Chu Fengmian sneered. For a saint at the 7th level of the Divine Force realm, it wasn't that the current Chu Fengmian didn't have any strength to fight against him. However, if he wanted to defeat him completely, he would still need to wait for a few days. 4th update. Chapter 329. Prince of Bloodkill, please stay here for a few more days. Chu Fengmian said calmly. He didn't want to argue with Prince of Bloodkill anymore. Okay. Prince of Bloodkill hesitated for a while, then nodded. He didn't expect that the reorganization of the Qin Shi Huang army would go so smoothly. It wouldn't be a problem for him to stay here for a few more days. King of Swordslayer, is there a quiet place in this camp that's suitable for cultivation? Chu Fengmian looked at King of Swordslayer and suddenly asked. He had bought countless things from the auction, but he hadn't had time to study them, especially the fragment of the extreme immoral weapon. Now, he really needed to study it. Chu Fengmian's current strength was far from being able to compete with Zhao Wudi. Zhao Wudi was a peak Saint expert. He was even confident that he could pass the Great Tribulation. Even if Zhao Wudi hadn't passed the Great Tribulation, Chu Fengmian was still far from being his opponent. To deal with family Zhao, Chu Fengmian and Zhao Wudi would have to fight sooner or later. Now, he had to improve his strength. At least, he had to be able to contend with Zhao Wudi. Only then could he have the capital to contend with family Zhao. Now, Chu Fengmian wanted to deal with the Destruction Legion. At least, he had to defeat the commander of the Destruction Legion, Ao Jianwang. In the next few days, Chu Fengmian had to improve his strength. Yes, young master. This way, please. King of Swordslayer stood up from the ground and hurriedly led Chu Fengmian to another tent in the camp. This tent was an Earth-grade spiritual artifact. It looked like it had been specially refined by someone to be used for peaceful cultivation. Alright, then I'll be borrowing your tent. Chu Fengmian glanced around the tent and nodded. This tent was an Earth-grade spirit tool. It was perfect for cultivation. It was incomparably safe. Young master, feel free to use it. I'll guard you outside. After saying that, King of Swordslayer retreated. Chu Fengmian's spiritual consciousness swept over. King of Swordslayer left the tent and sat in front of it. He closed his eyes and began to cultivate. It seemed that he really wanted to guard Chu Fengmian. King of Swordslayer is a man who knows how to repay kindness. Seeing this, Chu Fengmian nodded. He naturally didn't help the Swordslayer monarch for anything in return. However, seeing that he was someone who knew how to repay kindness, Chu Fengmian felt a lot better. With the protection of the Swordslayer monarch in this tent, Chu Feng was incomparably safe. With a thought, Chu Fengmian opened the empty ring. Within the empty ring, Chu Fengmian took out various mysterious items. Dragon blood crystals, blood essences of saints. Chu Fengmian took out all kinds of rare items and placed them in front of him. Some of these strange items were bought by Chu Fengmian at the auction, some were obtained from the mysterious treasure pavilion, and some were found in Zhao Peti's empty ring. As a saint, Zhao Peti naturally had quite a bit of wealth. Chu Fengmian found many wondrous items useful to him and took them all out at once. Each of these miraculous items could increase Chu Fengmian's strength, but the increase wasn't great. It was far from comparable to the demonic blood in Zhao Peti's body or the 1,000-year-old dragon blood grass. Fortunately, there were dozens of them, which was enough to increase Chu Fengmian's strength to another level. With a thought, Chu Fengmian activated all the power of the battle dragon art. Behind Chu Fengmian, the shadow of the ancient battle dragon began to faintly appear. The shadow of the ancient battle dragon saw the countless strange items on the ground and immediately let out a long roar. It flew over and opened its mouth to devour them. Every time these strange items were devoured, they would continuously pour energy into Chu Fengmian's body. All of these energy were condensed into the shadow of the ancient battle dragon. Immediately, more drops of ancient era's war dragon blood essence were formed. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian's body trembled. The ancient battle dragon blood essence in his body condensed another 50 drops, allowing him to make a breakthrough to the 6th level of the Imperial Wind Realm. After reaching the 6th level of the Imperial Wind Realm, my strength should be close to that of a true 6th level Divine Power Realm Saint. I can rely on the abundant lush steel to fight against a 7th level Divine Power Realm Saint. However, it's still far from enough to subdue Ao Jianyuan. There was no joy on Chu Fengmian's face after his breakthrough. His strength was still insufficient. Right now, Chu Fengmian needed to reach a higher level. Only then would he have the confidence to truly subdue Ao Jianyuan. Saint Blood Essence, all of it. With a thought, 3 drops of Saint Blood Essence appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. These 3 drops of Saint Blood Essence were the ones Chu Fengmian had bought at the auction. They were the blood essence of Zhao Pidi and Yi Gufan, who Chu Fengmian had killed. Chu Fengmian hadn't completely infused these drops of blood essence into his sword of massacre. They were meant to help Chu Fengmian improve his cultivation. Saint Blood Essence was condensed from the purest spiritual energy. When it came to improving one's cultivation, it was much more effective than many strange items. No, it was more accurate to say that Saint Blood Essence was one of the strange items of heaven and earth. Chu Fengmian shouted and ignited the 3 drops of Saint Blood Essence at the same time. With a thought, Chu Fengmian absorbed all of the pure spiritual energy into his body. An endless stream of ancient battle dragon blood essence was condensed. Chu Fengmian's strength was still increasing. He suddenly felt that his strength had reached a critical point again. A total of 50 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence were condensed. Break! Chu Fengmian shouted. His spiritual energy rose again, and a huge wave of spiritual energy rippled out from his body. Chu Fengmian's cultivation had finally reached the 7th level of the Imperial Wind Realm. This time, Chu Fengmian's face finally showed some joy. Good! My cultivation has reached the 7th level of the Imperial Wind Realm. With the power of the abundant lush steel, subduing Ao Jianyuan won't be a problem. Chu Fengmian said. However, Chu Fengmian wasn't in a hurry to subdue Ao Jianyuan. He still needed to improve his strength. Now that his cultivation had reached a bottleneck, Chu Fengmian needed to borrow some external help. Chu Fengmian took out countless materials from his spatial ring. At the same time, he took out the Scarlet Flame Sword and began to refine it. The grade of the Scarlet Flame Sword was not enough for Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian wanted to refine the Scarlet Flame Sword with so many materials. With a thought, Chu Fengmian ignited the countless materials with the Scarlet Flame Sword and condensed together. In a short while, the countless materials merged with the Scarlet Flame Sword to form a brand new longsword. After the refine, the Scarlet Flame Sword's grade suddenly soared to the level of top Earth grade. This was the limit of Chu Fengmian's refining. After all, he wasn't a true master blacksmith. In addition, he didn't have good materials. Top Earth grade was his limit. Chapter 330. The power of the top Earth grade Scarlet Flame Sword was at least several times stronger than before. It was enough for Chu Fengmian. Now that the Scarlet Flame Sword had been reforged, there was only one last thing left for Chu Fengmian. It was also the most important thing. With a thought, the broken jar appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. It looked ordinary, but Chu Fengmian dared not underestimate it. It was an extreme-grade immortal weapon that had surpassed the category of spirit tools. Even heaven-grade spirit tools were trash in front of an extreme-grade immortal weapon. Chu Fengmian dared not underestimate even the broken remains of the jar. Even people like Zhao Wudi longed for it and sent Zhao Xiong to buy it. If it weren't for Chu Fengmian, the broken jar might have fallen into Zhao Wudi's hands. I can't find out the identity of this jar. I'd better refine it first. Chu Fengmian studied it for a while, but he still couldn't find out the identity of the jar. There were very few records of extreme-grade immortal weapons in the ancient books, let alone this broken jar, which was just a remnant. With a thought, Chu Fengmian sent a stream of spiritual energy toward the jar, intending to refine it. Almost at the same time, Chu Fengmian condensed the dragon power of the primordial war dragon to the extreme and pressed it down, trying to resist the resistance of the broken jar. However, the refining process was much easier than Chu Fengmian had expected. the broken jar was easily refined by Chu Fengmian without much resistance. It's just a remnant after all, so it didn't resist much. Seeing that the broken jar was refined, Chu Fengmian breathed a sigh of relief. Refining an extreme-grade immortal weapon was 100 times, or even 1,000 times more difficult than refining a heaven-grade spirit tool. Fortunately, the broken jar was just a remnant. If it were a real extreme-grade immortal weapon, Chu Fengmian might not be able to refine it even if he gave it to him now. No, he definitely couldn't refine it. Only a life-and-death realm expert who had gone through a life-and-death tribulation and comprehended the mysteries of life and death could refine an extreme-grade immortal weapon. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, it was impossible for him to do so. Let me take a look at this broken jar. What is its origin? With a thought, Chu Fengmian activated the power of the broken jar. Suddenly, the word human appeared in Chu Fengmian's mind. Following the appearance of the character human, an extremely vast power burst forth. This power was so great that it seemed to be one of the greatest powers in the world. What kind of power is this? How could it be so grand? Who was the person who forged this extreme Dao immortal weapon? Which ancient almighty is it? Countless thoughts flashed through Chu Fengmian's mind. Extreme Dao immortal armaments were also refined by humans. Very few of them were born from nature. The word human represented the identity of the jar. Such great power! The human character. Could it be the ancient human emperor? A scene suddenly flashed through Chu Fengmian's mind. According to the ancient records, the moment the world was created, it was the time of desolation. At that time, hundreds of races stood in great numbers. It wasn't until the emergence of countless human emperors that the current status of the human race was established. The human emperor was an outstanding figure among the countless human emperors. He was said to be the one who enlightened humanity and opened up wisdom. He had an extremely great mind. Such a great power could only belong to the human emperor. This jar is actually the human emperor jar. In the past, the human emperor's spiritual tool was a jar filled with water. Chu Fengmian didn't expect that this broken jar was actually the famous human emperor jar. This jar looked ordinary, but in fact, it contained the true power of the human emperor. Just by activating it, Chu Fengmian could feel the terror of the power inside. Just activating it once drained Chu Fengmian's power. Even with the divine veins, he couldn't recover instantly. If I want to fully activate this jar, my realm must reach the divine power realm. Only when my strength is enough to contend against life and death realm experts can I use it freely. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but sigh. His realm was still too low. Now that the jar was in Chu Fengmian's hands, he couldn't use its full power. However, Chu Fengmian was rejoicing inwardly. Fortunately, the Emperor Jar hadn't fallen into Zhao Wudi's hands. Otherwise, when he crossed the life and death calamity and stepped into the life and death realm, who would be his opponent under the heavens? This mortal Emperor Jar was actually broken by someone. I wonder what kind of battle he went through to be able to break an extreme immortal weapon. Chu Fengmian looked at the jar and couldn't help but sigh. He had already sensed that the jar was only a part of the real Emperor Jar, about a quarter of it. A quarter of the jar was enough to release such a terrifying power. Chu Fengmian believed that if he activated the jar at full power, even a peak saint would be injured if he wasn't prepared. However, Chu Fengmian couldn't use it at will. He could only use it as his final trump card. Once he activated the jar, Chu Fengmian wouldn't be able to use his spiritual power for at least 3 seconds. 3 seconds was enough for a saint to kill Chu Fengmian countless times. Therefore, Chu Fengmian wouldn't use it unless he had no other choice. With this Emperor Jar, I can somewhat contend with Zhao Wudi. However, if I want to defeat Zhao Wudi, I'll have to increase my strength. Right now, family Zhao's people were all searching for mysterious items in the ancient ruins of Jiuxi country. Now is the best time to pull out family Zhao's countless roots. Before the experts of family Zhao returned, Chu Fengmian had to pull out all of family Zhao's roots and turn family Zhao into a general without an army. Chu Fengmian stood up and put away the jar. Then, he walked out with large strides. Sword Slayer King, your sword skills have improved quite a bit. Chu Fengmian walked out and saw Sword Slayer King, who was guarding outside, smiling. Compared to a few days ago, the sword intent on the Sword Slayer King's body was much purer and sharper. Young master has come out. Sword Slayer King hurriedly stood up after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. Thank you for your guidance, young master. No problem. Where's Prince of Bloodkill? Where is he? Chu Fengmian waved his hand and said. Now that Chu Fengmian's strength had greatly increased, it was time to deal with the Destruction Legion. Prince of Bloodkill is waiting in the camp. Sword Slayer King said. Good. Chu Fengmian's feet moved and his figure disappeared. He went directly to the camp. Today's 6th update is complete. I'll update again tomorrow. If you enjoy reading, please support me. Chapter 331. Sorry to keep you waiting, Prince of Bloodkill. In the camp, the space was shattered and a young figure walked out from the space. The young figure was Chu Fengmian. It's only been a few days. Prince of Bloodkill saw Chu Fengmian and walked over. He sized Chu Fengmian up and his eyes suddenly changed. Young Master Chu, you have a breakthrough again? The Prince of Bloodkill's words were filled with astonishment. Prince of Bloodkill saw that Chu Fengmian's aura was several times stronger than before. This also meant that Chu Fengmian had a breakthrough in his cultivation realm in just a few days. Chu Fengmian's strength was strange and powerful. Even his cultivation realm had a breakthrough so fast. Judging from this change, Chu Fengmian's cultivation realm had at least increased by 2 levels. Although the breakthrough in the Imperial Wind realm was many times easier than the Divine Power realm, it was extremely fast for those geniuses to break through 1 level in half a year or even a year. But now, Chu Fengmian had broken through 2 levels in just a few days. This speed was so fast that Prince of Bloodkill couldn't believe it for a moment. Not bad. I did have a breakthrough in my cultivation realm. Chu Fengmian nodded and didn't explain anything. The battle dragon art he cultivated was different from ordinary cultivation techniques. Ordinary cultivation techniques, no matter how much resources they had, required a certain amount of time to accumulate and comprehend. However, Chu Fengmian's battle dragon art could be broken through quickly as long as there were enough resources and he didn't encounter any bottlenecks. However, the battle dragon art wasn't invincible. Each breakthrough required an astronomical amount of resources. For example, when Chu Fengmian wanted to break through to the next level, the amount of resources he needed to break through to the next level was much more than what a saint at the Divine Force realm needed to break through to the next level. Without sufficient resources, giving this dragon battle art to others would only be a useless cultivation technique. Hence, Chu Fengmian could only keep accumulating resources to support his continuous cultivation and advancement. This person is really too terrifying. I wonder if it's a blessing or a curse for Princess Tianyin to cooperate with him. Prince of Bloodkill looked at Chu Fengmian and murmured in his heart. Originally, Prince of Bloodkill was confident that he could keep Chu Fengmian in check if he cooperated with him. But now, Chu Fengmian's strength had made another breakthrough, and he had taken control of the Qin Shi Huang army. If Chu Fengmian really fell out with the imperial family, then it would be a big problem no smaller than family Zhao. Fortunately, this person's character is very clear. As long as you don't provoke him, he won't turn hostile. The Prince of Bloodkill let out a sigh of relief when he thought of this. Chu Fengmian wasn't a temperamental person. What does young Master Chu plan to do next? Prince of Bloodkill suddenly said. Now that the Qin Shi Huang army had been subdued, the internal threat had been eliminated, and only family Zhao was left. Of course we have to deal with the Annihilation Legion first. Chu Fengmian said coldly. Although the Annihilation Legion claims to be neutral, there are signs that they're joining forces with family Zhao. If we don't take care of the Destruction Legion now, they'll help family Zhao in the future. If they turn on us and attack us, it'll be a big problem for us. Instead of sitting around and waiting for death, we might as well take care of them now. Let's go. Take me to the Annihilation Legion. Every word Chu Fengmian said was so domineering that no one could refute it. This was the aura of a natural overlord. Even the Prince of Bloodkill was stunned when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. He didn't dare to refute and only reacted after a long time. "Young Master Chu, are you really going to deal with the Annihilation Legion?" The Prince of Bloodkill asked in disbelief. He thought Chu Fengmian was just joking. After all, the Annihilation Legion was such a big monster that it wasn't easy to deal with. It could be said that the entire Annihilation Legion was strong enough to fight against some small countries. It wasn't easy to deal with them. Of course. Why should we keep such a big problem? Chu Fengmian said indifferently. Now that family Zhao isn't here, it's the best chance to deal with the Annihilation Legion. We can prevent family Zhao's people from interfering. But even if family Zhao isn't here, the Annihilation Legion isn't that easy to deal with. The Annihilation Legion has 3 vice commanders. Except for Yuan Kun, the other 2 are as strong as the Tai Army God. The first commander, Ao Jianyuan, is a peerless expert in the 7th tier of the Divine Power Realm. Even a peak saint can't subdue him. The Prince of Bloodkill said, sounding very worried. Currently, the relationship between the Imperial family and the Annihilation Legion was peaceful. If Chu Fengmian went to the Annihilation Legion and failed to subdue them, he would push the Annihilation Legion to family Zhao's side. This made the Prince of Bloodkill hesitate. Chu Fengmian said calmly, but it sounded irresistible. "Humph. Now that the Annihilation Legion has secretly joined forces with family Zhao, it doesn't matter even if they have a falling out. As for Ao Jianyuan, I'm confident that I can subdue him. Okay, I'll take you to the Annihilation Legion's barracks." The Prince of Bloodkill's forehead was dripping with sweat. In front of Chu Fengmian, he was under great pressure. Even the Tai Army God had been defeated by Chu Fengmian. The Prince of Bloodkill, who was only in the 4th tier of the Divine Power Realm, was like an ant in front of Chu Fengmian. He would be killed in an instant. The 2 figures left the barracks in an instant. They broke through space and flew to the south of the Qin Empire. The Annihilation Legion was stationed in the south of the Qin Empire's army. They had broken away from the imperial family's control and had formed their own faction in the south. They had become kings. When a saint broke through space, they could fly 10,000 miles in a day. However, even for a saint like the Prince of Bloodkill, each time he broke through space, it consumed a lot of energy. After a few times, his spiritual energy was exhausted and he needed to rest. "I'll take you there. You can help me lead the way." Chu Fengmian glanced at the Prince of Bloodkill, then waved his hand and took him to the south. Chu Fengmian's speed was many times faster than when he was with the Prince of Bloodkill. This speed made the Prince of Bloodkill speechless. What made the Prince of Bloodkill even more shocked was that Chu Fengmian didn't take a break while breaking through space. It was as if his spiritual energy was endless. In just a few hours, Chu Fengmian had crossed half of the Qin Empire and arrived in the south. Even if I don't have a good relationship with this person, I can't be his enemy. Otherwise, I will die without a burial place. The Prince of Bloodkill's heart was cold. He secretly made up his mind that no matter what, he couldn't provoke Chu Fengmian. Today's first update. Many people said that 6 updates a day wasn't slow. If there was enough time, they would update more. Chapter 332. A few hours later. Chu Fengmian traveled through half of the Qin Empire and finally came to a huge city, the ancient city of Shou Province. The ancient city of Shou Province was one of the biggest cities in the Qin Empire. Although it was not as prosperous as the 9-tripod ancient city, it still had a population of more than 100 million. The Destruction Legion was located in the ancient city of Shou Province, like a local tyrant. "Young Master Chu, should we go and inform the Annihilation Legion's experts to come out?" Prince of Bloodkill stood outside the ancient city of Shou Province and asked. After all, the Destruction Legion was not to be trifled with. He came here to win over Chu Fengmian. He did not want their relationship to be strained. Inform? No need. The higher-ups of the Destruction Legion are all gathered together. We can go directly. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and took Prince of Bloodkill. They turned into a beam of light and rushed into the ancient city of Shou Province. The ancient city of Shou Province's countless restriction arrays were nothing in front of Chu Fengmian. Young Master Chu, you can break the restriction arrays of the ancient city of Shou Province? Prince of Bloodkill wanted to remind Chu Fengmian that he could not break into the ancient city of Shou Province. The ancient city of Shou Prefecture was the headquarters of the Destruction Legion. It was filled with countless restrictive spells and spell formations. Even a saint would be killed if they rashly entered it. But now, before he could say anything, Chu Fengmian had taken him into the ancient city of the Shou Province. Countless restriction arrays were nothing in front of Chu Fengmian. They could not stop him at all. You want to stop me with these clumsy restriction arrays? What a joke! Chu Fengmian said disdainfully. He was familiar with countless ancient restriction arrays. Perhaps Chu Fengmian would be afraid of the truly powerful ancient restriction arrays. But these small restriction arrays in the ancient city of Shou Province were full of loopholes in his eyes. Naturally, he did not care about them and directly went through them. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Prince of Bloodkill felt helpless. The ancient city of Shou Province had layers upon layers of restrictive formations. It could be said that it was famous in the entire Qin Empire. But now, from Chu Fengmian's mouth, it only received a clumsy evaluation. However, there was indeed no way to refute it because this formation could not stop Chu Fengmian at all. A beam of light flew towards the depths of the ancient city of Shou Province without anyone noticing. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's spiritual awareness quietly penetrated into the depths of the ancient city of Shou Province. In a huge palace, there were countless thrones, just like the barracks of the Qin Shi Huang army. The highest throne was carved with countless images of true dragons. Only the imperial family could use the images of true dragons. From this, one could see how ambitious the Destruction Legion was. The throne at the very top belonged to Jianwang, the first commander of the Shatter Legion. Below them were 3 smaller thrones, which represented the 3 vice-commanders of the Shatter Legion. Yuan Kun, whose arm had been cut off by Chu Fengmian in the 9 Cauldrons ancient city, was sitting in one of the thrones. His arm had been regenerated, but his strength had weakened a lot. He was only at the 5th level of the Divine Power realm. Losing an arm was not important, but the Saint Blood essence in it had brought him a lot of trouble, which had caused his cultivation to regress. Below the 3 smaller thrones, there were 12 smaller thrones. The people sitting on these thrones were the generals of the Shatter Legion. They were all first-class experts in the outside world. The overall strength of everyone present was close to that of the Qin Shi Huang army. However, Jianwang, who was at the 7th level of the Divine Power realm, was among them, so their overall strength surpassed the Qin Shi Huang army. Now, all the thrones were filled with people. Obviously, they were discussing something important. About the Zhao family's proposal, what do you think? Jianwang, who was sitting on the highest throne, suddenly asked. Family Zhao's people have already promised us benefits. As long as we are willing to help them overthrow the royal family, we will still be the overlord of the south and be bestowed the title of king. Commander, I think we should ally with Family Zhao. Family Zhao is very powerful now, and Zhao Wudi is about to cross the life and death calamity and become the first life and death realm expert in the Qin Shi Huang country. Allying with Family Zhao will bring us great benefits. After Jianwang finished speaking, Yuan Kun, who was sitting below, directly spoke. Earlier, when he wanted to save Zhao Pidi, he had already contacted Family Zhao. Now, he naturally supported Family Zhao. What benefits? Our Destruction Legion is the overlord of the south, the uncrowned king. Do you think a mere title of king can buy us over and fight against the royal family? What a joke! Sitting next to Yuan Kun, another vice-commander, heard Yuan Kun's words and immediately spoke. Yuan Kun, don't think that we don't know that just because you received benefits from Family Zhao. You can take benefits from Family Zhao, but don't sell your life for Family Zhao. In the Destruction Legion, not everyone was willing to ally with Family Zhao. Vice Commander Red was one of those who supported the neutral position. Moreover, the situation is still uncertain. Let's wait and see. A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. If the royal family was so easy to deal with, they wouldn't have existed for thousands of years. Vice Commander Red coldly snorted and spoke. Feng Yan. Don't slander me. When did I receive benefits from Family Zhao? Hearing Vice Commander Red's words, Yuan Kun was furious. Now that Zhao Wudi is about to cross the life and death calamity and become the first life and death realm expert in the Qin Shi Huang country, we still insist on standing with the royal family. Do you all want to be the subjects of a fallen nation? If we ally with Family Zhao now, we'll all be the founding monarchs of a nation. Indeed, we can't be too hasty in allying with Family Zhao. However, I heard that there's a new situation recently. Yuan Kun, who cut off your arm? The last vice commander spoke. He was an extremely old man who seemed to be nearing the end of his lifespan. His face was extremely calm. The tone of his voice was also very gentle, and he looked like a calm old man. Humph, I still haven't found out who that person is. However, I heard that he's related to the Twilight Pavilion and has sold a lot of spirit tools from them. It's very likely that he's a genius secretly cultivated by the royal family. However, no matter how strong he is, he's only on par with me. Don't worry too much about him. Yuan Kun spoke. When he mentioned Chu Fengmian, his tone was filled with resentment. For a veteran expert like him to have his arm cut off by an unknown junior was a great humiliation. He couldn't wait to find Chu Fengmian right now to seek revenge and wash away his shame. Second update. Chapter 333. When I have the chance to meet him again, I will definitely kill him. Yuan Kun snorted coldly. Before he could finish his sentence, a mocking voice suddenly resounded throughout the entire palace. Really? I'm standing here today. Let's see how you're going to kill me. The space shattered, and two figures suddenly came out and entered the palace. These two figures were Chu Fengmian and Prince of Bloodkill. Who's there? How could someone break into the palace? What's going on? Seeing Chu Fengmian's sudden appearance, everyone present was stunned and taken aback. This palace was located in the deepest part of the ancient city of Shou province. It was set up with countless restriction arrays. Even a saint couldn't enter. But now, Chu Fengmian and the Bloodkill Prince had swaggered in as if the countless restrictions and array formations were nothing to them. Boy, how dare you come to the ancient city of Shou province? Yuan Kun saw Chu Fengmian, and the anger in his heart suddenly surged. His hatred for Chu Fengmian was like an endless Milky Way. Unless he killed Chu Fengmian, his hatred would never be quelled. The moment he saw Chu Fengmian, all the hatred in his heart was fully displayed. His spiritual energy suddenly burst out, and he couldn't wait to attack Chu Fengmian. Yuan Kun, who's this man? Do you know him? Feng Yan, who was sitting next to him, said with his eyes wide open. Of course, he knew Prince of Bloodkill beside Chu Fengmian, but he had never seen Chu Fengmian before. He was a stranger. Looking at Chu Fengmian's realm, although he was only at 7th level of the Imperial Wind realm, Chu Fengmian could pass through layers of restriction arrays and enter the palace. Obviously, Chu Fengmian wasn't an ordinary person. Of course, I know him. He's the one who cut off my arm. Yuan Kun roared angrily. Well, today you dare to trespass into the ancient city of Shou province. It seems that you're tired of living. Today is the day I settle the score with you. The moment Yuan Kun spoke, the power of yin and yang and 5 elements burst out from his body. He was ready to attack at any time. Stop! The chief commander, Ao Jianyuan, who was sitting on the highest throne, shouted coldly, and immediately quieted down. Prince of Bloodkill, why did you trespass into the ancient city of Shou province? Said Ao Jianyuan, looking at Prince Bloodkill. Obviously, he didn't put Prince Bloodkill in his eyes at all. If you don't give me a reason today, both of you will die here. Even if you are a prince of the imperial family, you can't trespass into the ancient Shou province. The moment Ao Jianyuan spoke, it was clear that he didn't even care about the imperial family. As a local tyrant, Ao Jianyuan obviously didn't put the imperial family in his eyes. The moment he opened his mouth, he directly said that if they didn't give an explanation today, the Bloodkill Prince and Chu Fengmian wouldn't be able to leave alive. The Bloodkill Grand Prince was about to answer, but he was interrupted by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian took the lead and stepped forward to speak to Ao Jianyuan. The reason why we've come today is naturally because of the Zhao family. Brat, who are you? Let the Bloodkill Prince speak. You are not qualified to talk to me. Ao Jianyuan looked at Chu Fengmian with disdain. A wind-controlling realm warrior was like an ant in his eyes. He wasn't qualified to talk to him at all. My name is Chu Han, the great commander of the Qin Shi Huang army. What? Am I not qualified to talk to you? Chu Fengmian sneered and said calmly. This sentence caused the calm atmosphere to become even more turbulent. What? The great commander of the Qin Shi Huang army? The Qin Shi Huang army let a wind-controlling realm brat be the great commander? Is the Qin Shi Huang army crazy? Ha ha, has the Qin Shi Huang army declined to this point? Even a kid at the wind-resisting realm can be the commander. Why don't you let us go? We're all saints after all. Prince Bloodkill, where did your imperial family find such a lunatic? Did you bring him here to make us laugh? Everyone on the scene was laughing. A warrior of the wind-controlling realm could become the great commander of the Qin Shi Huang army, which was something that no one could imagine. After all, the Qin Shi Huang army was one of the 3 armies that were as famous as the Destruction Army. If this news spread out, it would be a laughingstock. Who is he? Chu Fengmian glanced at the general of the Annihilation Legion who had mocked Chu Fengmian. This is Zhong Zhenan, the general of the Destruction Army. He's a saint at the 4th level of the Divine Power Realm. He's Yuan Kun's #1 subordinate. Prince Bloodkill heard Chu Fengmian's words and whispered to him. Oh? You're Zhong Zhenan? The general of the Destruction Army, right? Since you look down on me, I'll teach you a lesson today. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. He suddenly raised his hand, which turned into a giant hand of spiritual energy, and slapped toward Zhong Zhenan. Kneel down. Although Chu Fengmian only used half of his strength, it was enough to deal with a saint at the 4th level of the Divine Power Realm. Under this palm, Zhong Zhenan's body was stimulated with endless spiritual energy. Obviously, the moment Chu Fengmian attacked, he was already prepared. What a joke. A wind-controlling realm brat wants me to kneel down? You attacked Brother Yuan and injured him. Today, I'll teach you a lesson on his behalf. Zhong Zhenan sneered. An endless wild wind swept out from his body. 1,000 miles of wind kill. 1,000 miles of no one. Destroy. Endless wild wind blasted out from Zhong Zhenan's hand. Every gust of wind was like a sharp sword, trying to pierce Chu Fengmian. There was no way to escape from such a wild wind. If one was sucked into it, they would at least be seriously injured. You want to deal with me? You're too weak. Break. Chu Fengmian's face was calm, without the slightest fluctuation. He just waved his hand, and a gust of spiritual energy blasted out. The endless wild wind was immediately shattered by Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy. It was dispersed and dissolved in an instant. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's giant hand of spiritual energy had already arrived in front of Zhong Zhenan. As the palm fell, it contained endless spiritual energy. Zhong Zhenan's face stiffened, and his body fell straight from the throne, kneeling in front of Chu Fengmian. Zhong Zhenan, the general of the Destruction Army, was captured by Chu Fengmian in one move and forced to kneel on the ground. Many people didn't expect this result. Seeing that Zhong Zhenan was captured, the surrounding 5 or 6 generals attacked at the same time. Countless martial arts blasted toward Chu Fengmian. Damn it! This guy is so arrogant. He dares to attack in the ancient city of Shou province. He doesn't put us in his eyes at all. Kill! Kill this guy and save Zhong Jinan. Thank you for your tip. Today's third update. Chapter 334. The Destruction Legion had a high status in the Qin Empire. Both the imperial family and the Zhao family were extremely courteous to them. But now, Zhong Jinan was suppressed by Chu Fengmian in the ancient city of Shou province, and he was forced to kneel on the ground. This was a great insult to the generals of the Destruction Legion. They attacked Chu Fengmian one by one, wanting to kill him. A bunch of useless chickens and pottery dogs. It's meaningless no matter how many of you come. Break for me. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. The power of the 400 drops of ancient war dragon blood essence in his body was pushed to the extreme. Then, Chu Fengmian's hands fell from the sky. They seemed to have turned into two huge dragon claws. The dragon scales on them were clearly visible. They were no different from real dragon claws. The two dragon claws contained the real majesty of the war dragon. It made everyone feel that their opponent was not a human, but a real ancient war dragon. The two dragon claws broke through the sky and resisted the martial techniques of the crowd. Boom! 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 Countless martial techniques hit the two dragon claws, but they did not move at all. No matter how many martial techniques hit them, they could not move them at all. The difference in power was like the difference between a real dragon and a mortal. No matter how hard they tried, they could not move them. Bang! The two dragon claws slashed through the air. Immediately, the generals who attacked were sent flying and vomited blood. His attack this time was simply earth-shattering. Facing the joint attack of 5 or 6 saints, he had easily neutralized it. Instead, he had injured them one by one. Boy, you are too arrogant. This is the ancient city of Shou province. Even the emperor would not dare to be presumptuous here. You are too arrogant. Seeing the generals being sent flying and injured, Zhong Jinan was furious. One of the 3 vice commanders, Vice Commander Hong, Feng Yan, finally could not help but take action. As soon as he attacked, endless flames gathered and turned into a sea of fire. The sea of fire was like the scorching sun in the sky. It was extremely hot inside the eternal star. The boiling heat made Prince of Bloodkill retreat quickly. He did not dare to be affected by it. This man is Feng Yan, a terrifying expert at the 6th level of the Divine Power Realm. He is even stronger than God of War Tai. You must be careful. Prince of Bloodkill reminded Chu Fengmian as he retreated. Although they were both saints at the 6th level of the Divine Force Realm, Feng Yan's strength was still above Tai Junshin's. After all, the war god Tai was already old, and his strength was not as strong as before. On the other hand, Feng Yan was in his prime, and the flames on his body were even more powerful. Once this flame appeared, even the Grand Commander Ao Jianyuan, who was at the 7th level of the Divine Force Realm, had to retreat. He didn't dare to face it head-on. A saint at the 6th level of the Divine Force Realm. Although your strength isn't bad, you want to make an enemy out of me? It was still impossible. Break for me. What kind of flames are they? Break them all. Chu Fengmian glanced at Feng Yan. In the face of the endless flames, he did not dodge. With a thought, the scarlet flame sword appeared in his hand. As soon as the scarlet flame sword appeared, Chu Fengmian's aura was completely different from before. As a sword cultivator, Chu Fengmian's greatest strength was when he wielded his sword. Sword Chi. 1,000 strikes. Chop. Chop. Slash. The moment the scarlet flame sword in Chu Fengmian's hand slashed down, 1,000 rays of sword Chi burst out at the same time. 1,000 strikes. This was the terrifying power that came from comprehending the sword Dao to the extreme. A single ray of sword Chi was equivalent to 1,000 rays of sword Chi being unleashed at the same time. The power of a single sword was terrifying by 1,000 times. Where did this person come from? How could he have such a terrifying sword technique? Feng Yan's expression changed when he saw Chu Fengmian unleashing 1,000 rays of sword Chi. This sword technique was indeed frighteningly powerful. But so what if your sword technique is strong? I don't believe that a junior like you can overturn the heavens when you're in the wind-controlling realm. Blazing star. Devour everything. All of the sword chi, dissolve it. Feng Yan roared. The blazing sun in the sky suddenly emitted endless flames. These flames burned the rays of sword chi as if they were going to melt them all. His flames could burn everything in the world. Even invisible things like sword chi could be burned by them. You want to melt my sword chi? Even those old fellows from the Medicine King Valley wouldn't dare to say that. Little blazing sun. Kill them all. Chu Fengmian laughed loudly. Rays of sword chi broke through the flames and slashed at the blazing sun in the sky. Immediately, 1,000 rays of sword chi slashed at the same time. In a flash, the blazing sun in the sky was cut into pieces and fell down. Who is this person? Is he really the new great commander of the Qin Shi Huang army? This kind of strength. It's not impossible for him to become the great commander. Where did the royal family find such a strange kid? He killed a saint with the wind-controlling realm. What kind of strength is this? This kind of person shouldn't exist in the 9 regions. I heard that this kid defeated Yuan Kun. Wasn't it a sneak attack? Now, it seems that it wasn't a sneak attack. Feng Yan's blazing sun was shattered. Yuan Kun fought with him and lost an arm. This guy was already merciful. The appearance of such a character is definitely a variable. Xiao Wudi was able to break through to the life and death realm. This is something that no one in our Qin Shi Huang country has done in 1,000 years. This is already a variable. Now that this kid has appeared, is the Qin Shi Huang country going to have a big change? It's not a good thing for our Destruction Legion to be enemies with such a person. The saints who didn't take action stood aside and talked with each other. They were all saints with great wisdom. They had their own considerations, so they wouldn't take action rashly. They were all analyzing the gains and losses. What do you think? This time, you can prove my strength. Chu Fengmian's sword broke the blazing sun, but he stopped and didn't continue. Instead, he coldly scanned the crowd. In particular, his gaze finally landed on Ao Jianyuan. I wonder if I'm qualified to speak this time. Yes. You're Chu Han, the great commander of the Qin Shi Huang army. Ao Jianyuan looked at Chu Fengmian expressionlessly. No one knew what he was thinking. Why did you come to the ancient city of Shou province to look for the Destruction Legion? You're not here to show off, right? Ao Jianyuan looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly. Show off? I'm not interested in that. It's just that you don't believe in my strength, so I showed a little bit of it. Chu Fengmian said calmly. I came to the ancient city of Shou province to look for you all for one thing. I want the Destruction Legion to submit to the royal family and fight family Zhao with them. Chapter 335. Chu Fengmian's words shocked everyone. The entire palace was eerily quiet. Not a single sound could be heard. It seemed that no one dared to disturb the current peace. Asking the Shatter Legion to submit was such arrogant words. Even family Zhao's people weren't so arrogant. When family Zhao had talked to the Shatter Legion, he had only asked for cooperation, not submission. Submission. The Shatter Legion's power was comparable to some small countries. How could they submit? Even Prince Bloodkill was dumbfounded when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. He was speechless, not knowing what to say. He had thought that Chu Fengmian had come to the ancient city of Shou province just to show off his strength and talk about cooperation with the Shatter Legion. But now, Chu Fengmian had directly asked the Shatter Legion to submit, which made Prince Bloodkill dumbfounded. He couldn't say anything. The atmosphere suddenly reached a freezing point. Countless experts of the Shatter Legion were filled with anger. You want the Shatter Legion to submit? Kid, are you crazy? Or do you think that the Shatter Legion will be afraid of you if you show off your strength? A mocking voice resounded in the palace. It was Yuan Kun who had spoken. As soon as he spoke, Countless experts around him also spoke at the same time. That's right. No matter who you are, we won't submit to you. Even if your emperor comes, we won't submit. Arrogant. He's too arrogant. This kid is really arrogant to the extreme. Countless generals said angrily. Hearing the angry voices of the crowd, Yuan Kun smiled inwardly and deliberately shouted. Guys, let's take action together and suppress this kid. We'll make him kneel in front of the ancient city of Shou province. We'll show the others that the Shatter Legion isn't easy to mess with. Hearing Yuan Kun's words, the eyes of the countless experts present moved. They were eager to try and attack Chu Fengmian at any time. They were ready to attack together. Really? Let's see who dares. Chu Fengmian's spirit force burst out without any concealment. He frowned and laughed. Every word he said was sharp. It was extremely domineering. Chu Fengmian was simply a dragon among men. With just one sentence, no one present dared to refute Chu Fengmian's words. They were all subdued by Chu Fengmian's imposing manner. You, all of you. Yuan Kun's expression changed drastically when he saw that Chu Fengmian's words had broken his incitement for a long time. He hated Chu Fengmian to the bone. The reason he was trying to drive a wedge between Chu Fengmian and him was so that he could borrow the power of the Annihilation Legion to kill Chu Fengmian. Even if he couldn't kill Chu Fengmian, he wanted to humiliate Chu Fengmian to ease his anger. However, at that moment, Chu Fengmian's words actually caused everyone present to not dare to attack. That's right. Even Fengmian wasn't Chu Fengmian's opponent. If any of them were to make a move, they would be courting death. Of all the people present, only Ao Jianyuan could truly fight Chu Fengmian. Commander, are you just going to watch this brat act arrogantly in the ancient city of Shou province? Our Shatter Legion has never been humiliated like this in hundreds of years. If we don't teach this brat a lesson today, any Tom, Dick, or Harry will dare to provoke our Shatter Legion tomorrow. Yuan Kun said to Ao Jianyuan, who was sitting on the highest throne, in a tearful voice. This Yuan Kun had a glib tongue. Obviously, he wanted to borrow the power of the Annihilation Legion to deal with Chu Fengmian for his own revenge. However, he said it as if it was for the sake of the Annihilation Legion's reputation. His words infuriated everyone. Suppress him. We must suppress him. The reputation of our Shatter Legion that has been preserved for thousands of years cannot be blasphemed. Everyone, let's attack together and suppress this brat. I don't believe that his strength is so strange that he can compete with all of us. That's right. Let's attack together. We can definitely kill him. His strength is so strange. He must have endless fortuitous encounters. Kill him, and his fortuitous encounters will be ours. All the saints looked at Chu Fengmian. Their spiritual energy surged, as if they would attack at any time to kill Chu Fengmian. Yuan Kun, you have a glib tongue. You tried to sow discord. I once spared your life, but I didn't expect you to be so unrepentant. Well, I can spare your life, and I can kill you today. Die for me. Chu Fengmian looked at Yuan Kun and snorted coldly. Yuan Kun's glib tongue was really good at sowing discord. Chu Fengmian had just intimidated everyone present, and Yuan Kun's words provoked him again. Chu Fengmian once spared him, and he was a scourge. Today, Chu Fengmian wanted to kill Yuan Kun again. Sword. Chu Fengmian slashed out with the scarlet flame sword in his hand, which turned into a sharp sword energy. This sharp sword energy cut through the space and immediately slashed toward Yuan Kun. Chu Fengmian showed no mercy with this sword energy. He clearly wanted to kill Yuan Kun. Junior, you've gone too far. An angry shout suddenly rang out. The moment this angry shout rang out, the whole world was filled with ghostly wails and howls. Countless ghost claws appeared in the sky and completely blocked Chu Fengmian's sword energy. Ao Jianyuan, do you want to stop me? The person who suddenly attacked was the commander of the Destruction Legion, Ao Jianyuan. Only he had the strength to save Yuan Kun from Chu Fengmian's hands. Junior, this is the ancient city of Shou province. It's our Destruction Legion. You want to kill people here? You're too arrogant. Moreover, you want us to submit to you today. Our Destruction Legion will never submit to anyone. Ao Jianyuan looked at Chu Fengmian with an angry face. He was also infuriated by Chu Fengmian's words. Ao Jianyuan, had always regarded himself as an emperor. How could he be provoked like this? If your imperial family has some sincerity and comes to beg our Destruction Legion, we might cooperate with you to deal with family Zhao. Unfortunately, you're too arrogant. Kneel down and beg me to hand over the remains of the extreme Dao celestial weapon. Only then will our Destruction Legion cooperate with your imperial family. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving today if you don't give us an explanation. He naturally knew that Chu Fengmian had obtained the remains of the extreme Dao celestial weapon. Ao Jianyuan had been coveting the remains of the extreme Dao celestial weapon for a long time. Today, he would use this opportunity to take the remains of the extreme Dao celestial weapon away from Chu Fengmian. Ao Jianyuan didn't hide the threat in his words. If Chu Fengmian didn't hand over the remains of the extreme Dao celestial weapon, Chu Fengmian and Prince of Bloodkill wouldn't be able to leave unscathed. However, since Chu Fengmian had come today, he had no intention of leaving. Chapter 336. Even if it was a dragon's lair or a tiger's den, Chu Fengmian would still break into it, let alone this small ancient city of Shou Province, the headquarters of the Destruction Legion. A threat? Chu Fengmian had never been afraid of the threats of countless experts from the 7 sections. Ao Jianyuan's threat was nothing to him. Moreover, Chu Fengmian didn't come here to escape. He wanted the entire Destruction Legion to submit to him. Give me an explanation. My explanation is to make all of you submit to me. Since you don't listen to the soft approach, I won't be polite. Chu Fengmian laughed. Since they didn't listen to the soft approach, he would use the hard approach. Kneel down. How dare you threaten me? Arrogant? So what if I'm arrogant today? As Chu Fengmian's voice rang out, endless dragon power condensed on the tip of his sword. Whoosh! A beam of sword energy shot out and spread out, turning into a long dragon. It roared and rushed toward Yuan Kun. This sword strike was meant to completely kill Yuan Kun. This scourge must die today. How dare you? Ao Jianyuan was furious. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian to be so arrogant. He was arrogant to the extreme. He didn't even dare to ignore his threats, and he even dared to attack and kill Yuan Kun in front of him. More and more ghostly hands appeared in the sky. These ghostly hands immediately grabbed the long dragon formed by the sword aura and trapped it within them. Old man, since you're here to make trouble, I'll kill you first. You don't want to submit, do you? Then I'll suppress you. Let's see if you'll submit or not. Chu Fengmian snorted when he saw Ao Jianyuan trying to stop him. If these people were sensible, Chu Fengmian wouldn't be interested in attacking them. However, Ao Jianyuan kept calling him a junior and threatening him. Chu Fengmian wasn't a pushover who would be bullied by others. Chu Fengmian didn't show his power. Did these people really think that Chu Fengmian didn't dare to attack the Destruction Legion? Today, Chu Fengmian would completely suppress Ao Jianyuan and see if he would submit or not. Chu Fengmian's mind flickered. The sword energy dragon trapped in the ghost hands suddenly gathered power and burst out. It turned into countless sword energy and instantly destroyed the ghost hands around it. At the same time, the sword in Chu Fengmian's hand gathered power again. Monstrous killing intent condensed on Chu Fengmian's body. Endless blood energy condensed on Chu Fengmian. Slaughter. The 3,000-meter-long blood scar cut through space and slashed toward Ao Jianyuan. This sword art of slaughter was many times more powerful than the one Chu Fengmian had used in Qin Shi Huang's army. He had absorbed the blood essence of 3 saints, and his massacre sword technique was close to great accomplishment, and its power was even more terrifying. How dare you? How dare you attack? It seems that the Imperial family really wants to have a falling out with the Destruction Legion. Very well, today, this old man will kill the 2 of you first. Later, I'll destroy your royal families. Fengyin's. Feng Zhao Zhenyuan's face changed. Layers of spiritual energy condensed on his body. They were all gray ghost energy. What he cultivated was the extremely strange ghost path. Now, countless wisps of ghostly aura surrounded him, making him look like a half-human, half-ghost figure. As soon as he attacked, he was like a ghost god. With a flick of his sleeve, endless ghost energy rushed toward Chu Fengmian. One ghost energy, one blood energy. The two forces collided in the air. The explosive power was enough to make heaven and earth tremble. The entire palace was trembling. The palace itself was a top-grade Earth-rank spirit artifact. Furthermore, it was reinforced with countless restrictions and formations. Unexpectedly, it was shaken by the aftermath of the collision of the two forces. It was enough to show how terrifying these two forces were. A monster who doesn't look like a human or a ghost dares to talk nonsense. You want to kill me? Even if I lend you 10 times my power, you can't do it. Slaughter the world, explode. Chu Fengmian's mind flickered, and the 1,000-foot-long blood mark suddenly exploded. Endless blood energy suppressed all the ghost energy in the surroundings. The explosive power hit Ao Zhenyuan's body. This impact was no less than a huge mountain crashing toward him. Ao Zhenyuan's body was sent flying, and some blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. What? Even the chief commander is no match for this person? The chief commander lost in a contest of strength. That's impossible, right? The Grand Commander is an expert at the 7th level of the Divine Force realm. Other than those old antiques who are in hiding, the Grand Commander's strength is considered top-notch even in the Qin Empire. How could he be injured by an unknown junior today? This scene caused countless people present to be dumbfounded. They jumped up and simply could not believe their eyes. Who was Ao Zhenyuan? He was the chief commander of the Destruction Legion, an overlord of a region. Even when facing the royal family of the Qin Empire, he was on equal footing. Such an invincible figure had lost to Chu Fengmian in a contest of strength, and was sent flying by Chu Fengmian. This was simply beyond their understanding. Could it be that Chu Fengmian was invincible? Even Ao Zhenyuan couldn't defeat him? Little bastard. I'll kill you. Ao Zhenyuan roared crazily. He was furious to the extreme. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian's strength to be so terrifying that he could defeat him with a single move. Even if it was just a small victory, it didn't hurt him. But in Ao Zhenyuan's heart, it was a great insult. Ao Zhenyuan, had never been defeated by a junior. If this news spread, he would be laughed at. Little bastard. This old man hasn't used his full strength for 100 years. This time, you forced me to. Today, you will die. Ao Zhenyuan roared. The whole palace underwent a strange change, and they came to a completely different space. Ghost Nether Domain. Inside Ao Zhenyuan's domain, there was an extremely silent death zone. Ghost chi filled the sky, and countless ghosts and deities wailed in the air. The rain that fell from the sky was a rain of blood. This was the real Ghost Nether Domain. White bone claws descended from the sky and blasted toward Chu Fengmian. Little bastard. Go to hell. I will extract your soul and refine it into a ghost deity. You will be under my command for the rest of your life. Ao Zhenyuan's entire person had now become neither human nor ghost. This kind of ghost Tao was originally the Tao of ghosts. If someone cultivated it, they would be affected and become a monster. It was an absolute forbidden technique. If Ao Zhenyuan hadn't been forced into a desperate situation by Chu Fengmian, he wouldn't have to use this move. Now that he had used it, there was nothing to worry about. Today, he must kill Chu Fengmian to resolve the hatred in his heart. At the end of the 6th watch. Chapter 337. The entire area had turned into a ghostly domain. The sky was filled with skeletal claws as they attacked Chu Fengmian. There seemed to be no end to the skeletal claws. Now that Ao Zhenyuan had unleashed the ghostly domain, he was determined to kill Chu Fengmian. Die! The skeletal claws attacked Chu Fengmian one after another. However, Chu Fengmian's expression was as calm as ever. Suddenly, the abundant lush monument appeared in his hand. The abundant lush monument suddenly enlarged in Chu Fengmian's hand. It charged at the skeletal claws in the sky, and an extremely powerful spiritual energy burst forth. As for the countless skeletal devil claws that Ao Zhenyuan had created, they were instantly shattered by the power of the rich lush steel. There was no way the skeletal devil claws could compare to the power of the rich lush steel. Boom! With a loud boom, the countless white-bone demonic claws were instantly destroyed and disappeared into thin air. What? What kind of spiritual weapon is that? How could it be so terrifying? Ao Zhenyuan had never expected that Chu Fengmian would have such a trump card. The power of the monument in Chu Fengmian's hand was simply too powerful. It was too powerful. The skeletal claws formed by Ao Zhenyuan were all destroyed by the power of the abundant lush monument. A heaven-grade spiritual weapon. It's definitely a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. Ao Zhenyuan had already guessed a few things when he saw the abundant lush monument in Chu Fengmian's hand. Only a true heaven-grade spiritual weapon could possess such terrifying power. Chu Fengmian actually had a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. It was a rare item even in the 9 realms. Not bad. Looks like you have a good eye. Chu Fengmian looked at Ao Zhenyuan and laughed. Kneel and submit now, and I'll spare your life. What do you think? Do you think I dared to barge into the ancient city of longevity because I wasn't prepared? What a joke! You're just a wind control realm brat. You don't have the right to make me submit. Ao Zhenyuan was enraged by Chu Fengmian's words. Then, he laughed maniacally. Do you really think that with the help of a heaven-grade spirit artifact, you'll be able to contend against me? The wind control realm is still the wind control realm. Do you really think I'll be defeated by a junior like you? This old man wants to see how many times you can activate this stone tablet. Ao Zhenyuan said sternly. He had yet to guess what kind of spiritual weapon this stone tablet was. However, as long as it was a heaven-grade spiritual weapon, one would have to pay a huge price to activate it. Even if a wind-resisting realm martial artist was given a heaven-grade spirit weapon, how many times could he activate it? Fortuitous encounters could not make up of it. As long as he waited for Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy to run out, the final victory would definitely belong to him. Thinking of this, Ao Zhenyuan's face showed ecstasy. You've met. Not only was his strength extremely strange, he also had so many spirit artifacts. That sword was an earth-grade top-grade spirit artifact, and that stone tablet was a heaven-grade spirit artifact. B. Stronger. The heavens are really helping me. And then we'll talk after I get all your fortuitous encounters. 5 ghostly deities, show yourselves and kill this brat. Ao Zhenyuan waved his hand, and 5 ferocious ghosts appeared between the heavens and the earth. These 5 ferocious ghosts were ghost gods whose strength had reached the divine power realm. These 5 demon deities were saints that Ao Zhenyuan had killed before. Their souls were bound, and they were taken into the ghost nether domain to be turned into demon deities. Behind these 5 demon deities was an army of countless demon deities. At a glance, there were tens of thousands of them. Ao Zhenyuan must have killed a lot of people to turn their souls into demon deities. The army of demon deities was Ao Zhenyuan's trump card. He wouldn't use it unless he had no other choice. But now, he didn't care about Chu Fengmian. Once he killed Chu Fengmian and obtained his fortuitous encounters, his strength would skyrocket. It didn't matter if he had a trump card or not. At that time, he might even be able to cross the life and death realm and become a character on par with Zhao Wudi. What was the point of keeping such a small trump card? In a flash, the army of demon deities was already charging at Chu Fengmian. Humph, what did I have back then? Just some puny demon deities? You want to deal with me with just these? Fine, I'll devour all your demon deities first. Then I'll deal with you. Looking at the army of demon deities, Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. In Chu Fengmian's eyes, these demon deities were simply walking spiritual energy. He would kill and suppress them. After the demon deities were dissolved by the battle dragon art, they would become extremely pure spiritual energy. Chu Fengmian used the phantom body technique and rushed into the army of demon deities. Facing the countless demon deities, he clawed and instantly shattered several hundred of them. The power of the battle dragon art emerged from Chu Fengmian's body, turning into a supreme dragon might. Under the supreme draconic might, the ghostly chi of the malicious ghosts in Chu Fengmian's hands was completely dissolved. The ancient battle dragon was the strongest force. Under the dragon might, any kind of demon deities could be dissolved in an instant. In a flash, the demon deities of the hundreds of demon deities were dissolved by Chu Fengmian and turned into balls of pure spiritual energy. They were devoured by Chu Fengmian in an instant. Although the strength of these demon deities was not great individually, their numbers were huge. If Chu Fengmian devoured all the demon deities in the army of demon deities, his strength could be further improved. Ha ha ha, Ao Jianwang, I have to thank you for the spiritual energy. Since you took the initiative to give it to me, I won't be polite. Countless battle dragons, appear and devour all of them. Chu Fengmian laughed continuously. The moment the spiritual energy in his mind was activated, several ancient battle dragons appeared in the sky and devoured the demon deities in a frenzy. The demon deities of these demon deities were dissolved in an instant. Then, only the purest spiritual energy was left and was devoured directly. Chu Fengmian's strength was rising steadily and his aura was soaring. Damn it! Seeing this scene, Ao Jianwang flew into a rage. His army of demon deities had turned into nutrients for Chu Fengmian to increase his strength. Not only did they not consume Chu Fengmian's strength, but they were also dissolved and devoured by Chu Fengmian. 5 demon deities attacked together. This book had always been updated at night, mainly because it was only at night that he had time to write. During the day, everyone had urged him to update, but there was no other way. He could only hope that everyone would wait. Thank you very much for the tips from my 2 brothers. Gone with the Wind and love is just a game. Chapter 338. Ao Jianwang had wanted to use the ghouls in the army to deplete Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy. Although the ghouls weren't strong, they were extremely annoying. They were like ants that could bite an elephant to death. Even a saint would have to exhaust a great deal of effort to annihilate the entire army of vengeful ghosts if he were to fall into it. Ao Jianwang didn't know how many saints he'd killed with this move. He could easily obtain countless ghouls from any sect he destroyed, so he didn't mind expending them. However, he never imagined that Chu Fengmian would have a way to neutralize the ghouls. The ghouls were extremely difficult to deal with even for saints. Once they were infected, they would have to expend a lot of energy to get rid of them. However, Chu Fengmian's war dragon technique was the bane of all evil. The ghouls were easily neutralized by the might of an ancient war dragon. His ghouls didn't deplete Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy at all. Instead, they allowed Chu Fengmian to devour his spiritual energy, causing his strength to skyrocket. As a result, he had no choice but to use the 5 specters. He had captured 5 saints to refine the 5 specters. It had taken him hundreds of years to refine the 5 specters. Each of them was Ao Jianwang's treasure. He wouldn't dare use them unless it was absolutely necessary. However, he had no choice but to grit his teeth and bring them out to deal with Chu Fengmian. As long as he could kill Chu Fengmian today, he wouldn't mind losing a few of his ghouls. If he could obtain Chu Fengmian's countless fortuitous encounters, the richly lush steel alone would be enough to make up for all his losses. Ao Jianwang released a burst of spiritual energy that transformed into 5 streams of spiritual energy and poured into the 5 specters. The power of the 5 specters began to skyrocket. In an instant, each of them reached the peak of the 6th level of the divine force realm. The 5 specters were comparable to 5 saints at the peak of the 6th level of the divine force realm. The layers of ghost chi between heaven and earth became so dense that it was frightening. It directly turned black. the entire space was plunged into the darkness of despair. In this darkness, no one could see any hope, only endless despair. 5 Spectres Godseal Formation. The 5 spectres joined forces and formed an extremely terrifying formation. Everyone's expressions changed the moment they saw the grand formation. This was Ao Jianyuan's supreme killing move, the 5 Ghosts God-sealing formation. These 5 spectres were all terrifying experts at the peak of the 6th level of the Divine Force realm. When they attacked together, even a saint at the peak of the 7th level of the Divine Force realm would be suppressed. The appearance of the 5 Ghosts God-sealing formation meant that Ao Jianyuan wanted to completely suppress Chu Fengmian. 5 Ghosts God-sealing formation. Chu Fengmian sneered again and again. This 5 Ghosts God-sealing formation was indeed an extremely powerful suppression technique. If Chu Fengmian had not broken through before, he would have been easily suppressed by Ao Jianyuan with his strength at the 5th level of the Imperial Wind Realm. However, now that Chu Fengmian had made a breakthrough and reached a critical point, it was impossible for the 5 Ghosts God-sealing formation to suppress him. Sky splitting. The sword in Chu Fengmian's hand suddenly flashed and slashed at the 5 Ghosts God-sealing formation. The power of this sword was already terrifying to the extreme. In an instant, the sword slashed out, tearing a hole in the sky. The true sky-splitting sword caused the entire space around Ao Jianyuan and the netherworld to tremble. Good. I knew you had this trick up your sleeve. Unfortunately, you fell for it. Ao Jianyuan was not shocked when he saw the 5 Ghosts God-sealing formation being torn apart. Instead, he smiled confidently. 5 spectres. Come out and kill them all. Within the 5 Ghosts God-sealing formation, the figures of the 5 spectres suddenly appeared and directly appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. With a burst of ghostly wails and howls, endless ghostly chi turned into 5 spears and stabbed at Chu Fengmian at the same time. The 5 Ghosts God-sealing formation could only suppress Chu Fengmian. It was extremely difficult to suppress someone like Chu Fengmian. From the beginning, Ao Jianyuan had made up his mind not to suppress Chu Fengmian, but to kill him completely. Chu Fengmian was able to have so many fortuitous encounters at such a young age. With such strength, he was a person with great luck. With such a person, as long as Chu Fengmian was given the slightest chance, he would be able to find it and kill him in a desperate situation. Therefore, Ao Jianyuan had made up his mind from the beginning to kill Chu Fengmian and not give him any chance to escape. The moment the 5 spectres appeared, they arrived in front of Chu Fengmian and did not give him any time to breathe. They attacked all of a sudden and wanted to kill him. Boy, do you really think you can break my 5 Ghosts God-sealing formation so easily? Let me tell you, all of this is my scheme. Today, you will die in my hands. You won't die in vain. Ao Jianyuan laughed loudly. He was a figure at the 7th level of the Divine Power Realm and the commander of the Annihilation Legion. In order to deal with a junior like Chu Fengmian, he had used such a method. If Chu Fengmian could escape today, then he, as the commander, would no longer be qualified to be here. In Ao Jianyuan's view, Chu Fengmian was already a dead man. The 5 spectres suddenly attacked at such a close distance. Even he could not react in time, let alone Chu Fengmian. This time, Chu Fengmian would undoubtedly die. Is that so? You have a scheme, but do you think I don't have one? The 5 spectres suddenly attacked, but Chu Fengmian did not panic at all. It was as if he had already guessed it. I've long guessed your scheme. Do you think you can hide from me by deliberately showing your annihilation formation? How could the flaw that Ao Jianyuan deliberately showed be hidden from Chu Fengmian's eyes? For someone like Ao Jianyuan, let alone a flaw, in such a life-and-death battle, he would not show even half a flaw. He was an outstanding figure among the saints. Of course, Chu Fengmian could see such an obvious flaw at a glance. Chu Fengmian looked at the 5 spectre gods stabbing at him with their spears, and a faint smile appeared on his face. The reason Chu Fengmian did not reveal the truth was because of these spectres. The spiritual power of these spectres was no less than the power of the blood essence of 5 true saints. Chu Fengmian had long since wanted to devour them. Now, this move was to lure the 5 specter gods out of their holes. The moment the specters appeared in front of Chu Fengmian, the power of the abundant lush steel in his hand had been pushed to the limit. Chapter 339. Ao Jianyuan, you must have spent a lot of effort to cultivate these specters to this level. You must have fed them a lot of essence blood. Chu Fengmian smiled smugly. The power of these specters belongs to me now. You should be honored to be able to become a part of my power. Chu Fengmian laughed heartily as he activated the power of the richly lush tombstone. At such a close distance, Chu Fengmian was going to use the richly lush tombstone to kill all 5 specters. Not good. Ao Jianyuan's expression changed, becoming extremely embarrassed. He didn't expect his scheme to be completely seen through by Chu Fengmian. With a thought, he called out to the 5 specters, wanting to leave as soon as possible. He'd spent a lot of effort to cultivate them, even using a lot of his essence blood. Otherwise, his cultivation would have been able to take another step forward. If Chu Fengmian killed the specters, he wouldn't suffer any losses. But if he allowed Chu Fengmian to devour all of their power, Chu Fengmian's strength would rise to another level. Ao Jianyuan had to use all sorts of methods to deal with Chu Fengmian. If he allowed Chu Fengmian to grow even stronger, he wouldn't be a match for him at all. Damn you little bastard. Even if I have to destroy these specters, I won't let you have them. 5 specters, heed my command. Destroy yourselves. Ao Jianyuan roared madly, his words filled with boundless fury. Ao Jianyuan had spent a lot of effort on these specters. Now that Chu Fengmian had forced him into a corner, he had no choice but to order them to self-destruct. Ao Jianyuan's heart bled as he glared at Chu Fengmian with eyes that could kill. He hated Chu Fengmian to the core. In order to deal with Chu Fengmian, he was willing to sacrifice these specters. If he didn't kill Chu Fengmian today, he wasn't human. When the specters heard Ao Jianyuan's command, their spiritual energy went berserk as they charged at Chu Fengmian, preparing to self-destruct. The strength of each of these specters was no different from a saint of the same level of cultivation. If 5 specters exploded at the same time, any saint would be heavily injured. Ao Jianyuan, you won't be able to destroy these 5 specters just because you want to. Suppress him. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and 5 streaks of black spiritual energy appeared at the same time. They were the 5 heavenly death seals. The 5 heavenly death seals drilled into the 5 demon deities and took control of their spiritual energy. The spiritual energy in their bodies calmed down. With Chu Fengmian's dragon roar, the ghostly aura of the 5 specters was dissolved by Chu Fengmian, leaving behind only extremely pure spiritual energy. Chu Fengmian opened his mouth and devoured the 5 specters. Drops of ancient war dragon blood essence began to condense again. The spiritual energy of these 5 specters was no less than that of 5 true saints. This was absolutely a stroke of luck. Of course, Chu Fengmian would not let go of this opportunity. The battle dragon art was pushed to the limit and began to condense crazily to increase his strength. What kind of person is this? He can even resolve the self-explosion? He can even contend with me at the 7th level of the Imperial Wind Realm. Terrifying. Too terrifying. Ao Jianyuan looked at Chu Fengmian with surprise and joy. The stronger Chu Fengmian was, the more frightening the fortuitous encounter he had. If he could kill Chu Fengmian today and obtain all his fortuitous encounters, he would have a great chance to break through the life and death calamity and step into the life and death realm, becoming a peerless expert. This little bastard wants to absorb spiritual energy to break through. This is my best chance. The moment of breakthrough is the weakest moment. I can seize this opportunity to kill him in one fell swoop. Ao Jianyuan was extremely calm and analyzed the opportunity in an instant. Now that Chu Fengmian had devoured the 5 specters, he would definitely break through. Otherwise, Chu Fengmian's realm would not be able to withstand such a huge amount of spiritual energy. He could only choose to break through. A warrior's breakthrough was the weakest moment. As long as he could seize this opportunity to kill Chu Fengmian in one fell swoop, he would still win this battle. Seeing that Chu Fengmian's power was getting stronger and stronger and had finally reached the bottleneck, Ao Zhenyuan made his move. A white bone spear suddenly appeared in his hand. As soon as the white bone spear appeared, it contained Ao Zhenyuan's endless anger. He suddenly attacked Chu Fengmian. He wanted to take advantage of the moment when Chu Fengmian's power had reached the bottleneck and was about to break through to kill him. You want to find my weak moment? Unfortunately, even if I break through, I don't have a weak moment. Break for me. The moment Chu Fengmian devoured the spiritual energy of the 5 specters, 100 drops of ancient war dragon blood essence condensed in his body, reaching 500 drops in an instant. The power of these 500 drops of ancient war dragon blood essence burst out at the same time. A powerful spiritual energy suddenly burst out from Chu Fengmian's body, increasing his strength by countless times. At this moment, Chu Fengmian took another step forward and stepped into the 8th level of the Imperial Wind Realm. The aura on his body kept rising, and he did not look weak at all. Normally, when a martial artist broke through, there would be a period of weakness. This was because during the breakthrough, they would need to gather all of their spiritual energy and push forward. In this way, when the breakthrough was successful, the spiritual energy in the body would be completely depleted. This was the origin of the period of weakness. However, Chu Fengmian had the god veins. In almost an instant, he had replenished the spiritual energy he had just used up. There was no period of weakness at all. Facing Ao Zhenyuan's white bone spear, Chu Fengmian laughed loudly. He immediately activated the abundant lush monument and sent out a blast of spiritual energy. Under the terrifying spiritual energy of the abundant lush monument, the white bone spear in Ao Zhenyuan's hand was broken in an instant. The white bone spear, which was strong enough to fight against an earth-grade spiritual artifact, could not withstand a single blow from Chu Fengmian. Ao Zhenyuan's entire body was pushed back by the power of the abundant lush monument. He was pushed back several dozen kilometers before he could stabilize himself. However, Ao Zhenyuan spat out a mouthful of blood. This blood was the blood of a saint. One move was enough to make Ao Zhenyuan spit out blood. It was obvious how much damage Ao Zhenyuan had sustained. Chapter 340. Even the Grand Commander is suppressed by him. What should we do? Is there no one in the Destruction Legion who can fight against him? Countless experts of the Destruction Legion were stunned as they watched the battle between Chu Fengmian and Ao Zhenyuan. Ao Zhenyuan, who was in the 7th level of the Divine Power Realm, was suppressed by Chu Fengmian. Even the 5 demons that Ao Zhenyuan had raised had been devoured and refined by Chu Fengmian. Ao Zhenyuan was the strongest expert of the Destruction Legion. He was one of the top figures in the Qin Empire. No one could have imagined that he would end up like this. Where did this person come from? How can someone who came out of nowhere be so strong? He's even more terrifying than Zhao Wudi. Vice Commander Feng Yan muttered as he looked at Chu Fengmian. Zhao Wudi was indeed strong, but Zhao Wudi had risen from the Qin Empire. Everyone knew Zhao Wudi's background. Even if he was strong, they wouldn't be too afraid. But now, Chu Fengmian was like someone who had jumped out of a crack in a rock. They didn't even know where he came from. If a saint who was stronger than Ao Zhenyuan had defeated him, they wouldn't have felt this way. After all, it was understandable. But now, Chu Fengmian, who was only in the wind-controlling realm, was like an ant. How could he defeat Ao Zhenyuan? This level of mystery was what everyone was afraid of. The Qin Empire is going to change. In the sky, Ao Zhenyuan, who had been forced to retreat by Chu Fengmian, moved his body and rushed over again. He wasn't willing to accept this. Even if he knew that Chu Fengmian had devoured the 5 demons, he was doomed. But he wasn't willing to accept this. He was a terrifying expert in the 7th level of the Divine Power Realm, an overlord. How could he be defeated by a mere wind-controlling realm expert? No matter what, he wouldn't surrender today. He would do everything he could to defeat Chu Fengmian. Little bastard, I don't believe you can defeat me today. Wrath of the Demons. Common people's destruction. Ao Jianyuan's spiritual energy erupted like a real demon. He condensed both hands and blasted a palm at Chu Fengmian. He wanted to use the last of his strength to kill Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Fengmian knew that Ao Jianyuan was already an arrow at the end of its flight. With a calm expression, he moved his feet and arrived in front of Ao Jianyuan. Once again, Chu Fengmian unleashed the power of the rich lush tombstone, unleashing yet another attack. This time, he used the last of his strength to summon a palm strike, but the power was completely neutralized by the rich lush tombstone. At the same time, a black seal appeared in Chu Fengmian's palm and he threw it at Ao Jianyuan. Didn't you want to refine me into a demon god? Fine, I'll turn you into my slave. Submitting to me and working for me, you are indeed powerful. Keeping you alive is also useful. As Chu Fengmian spoke, he channeled his spiritual energy into the heavenly death seal and sent it flying at Ao Jianyuan. He wanted to engrave the heavenly death seal into Ao Jianyuan's mind and make him submit to Chu Fengmian wholeheartedly. He would become Chu Fengmian's slave and serve him for all eternity. Impossible. I'm a saint. I'm an overlord. How can I be controlled by someone else? Impossible. Don't even think about controlling me. Ao Jianyuan felt the terror of Chu Fengmian's heavenly death seal and roared madly. He could sense that once the seal was engraved in the depths of his mind, he would become Chu Fengmian's slave for the rest of his life. His thoughts would be controlled, and he would never be able to rebel against Chu Fengmian. To serve the people he hated the most for eternity was simply torture to the extreme. Even if Ao Jianyuan were to die, he didn't want to fall into such a situation. His body erupted with power that was even more terrifying than when he was in a state of despair. As an expert of the 7th level of the divine power realm, Ao Jianyuan's self-esteem as an overlord had completely exploded. He wanted to use the last of his strength to resist Chu Fengmian. Ghostly immortality. Everyone is a ghost. Ao Jianyuan burst out with the last of his strength and went all out. His body began to transform into that of a ghostly immortal. His aura was already devoid of vitality, leaving only ghostly energy. Thousands of martial techniques were unleashed by Ao Jianyuan in an instant and blasted toward Chu Fengmian. This was his final counterattack in a desperate situation. Whether he could resist or not would depend on this step. You want to resist? It's futile to struggle. Supreme Dragon Might. Suppress. Heavenly Death Seal. Engrave. Chu Fengmian also burst out all the spiritual energy in his body. Supreme Dragon Might suppressed Ao Jianyuan's ghostly energy. At the same time, Chu Fengmian also struck out the heavenly death seal. He wanted to forcibly engrave it into the depths of Ao Jianyuan's heart. The confrontation between the two was a true battle of life and death. If Chu Fengmian won, he would engrave the heavenly death seal into Ao Jianyuan's body and subdue him. If Ao Jianyuan won, he could completely kill Chu Fengmian and seize all the fortuitous encounters on Chu Fengmian's body to ascend to the peak. In this battle, both of them burst out with their strongest strength without holding back. The ancient battle dragon blood essence in Chu Fengmian's body began to boil. This was the appearance of his strength being pushed to the extreme. This Ao Jianyuan was definitely the strongest opponent Chu Fengmian had encountered since coming to the Qin Empire. The commander of the Annihilation Legion, one of the 3 major legions, was a true overlord. He was indeed an extremely powerful figure. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian had just devoured the power of the 5 ghostly immortals, allowing him to condense another 100 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence. His strength had increased again, allowing him to suppress Ao Jianyuan now. Otherwise, Chu Fengmian might have lost this battle and almost capsized in a ditch. But now, Chu Fengmian's strength had begun to steadily suppress Ao Jianyuan's strength. Ao Jianyuan wanted to resist, but he didn't have much strength left. Ao Jianyuan's strength was about to reach its limit and he was about to be defeated. However, at this moment when the tension reached its limit, a sword light silently cut through the space and arrived. It aimed at Chu Fengmian's body and slashed at him. This was a true sure-kill attack. It was unknown how long the attacker had been waiting for this opportunity to strike when Chu Fengmian and Ao Jianyuan were truly fighting with their lives on the line. "Go to hell, you little bastard!" A sinister laugh rang out crazily. Along with the sword light, a figure appeared. Yuan Kun. It was this person. Now that Chu Fengmian was busy fighting Ao Jianyuan, he actually found the perfect opportunity to stab at Chu Fengmian with his sword. Chapter 341. This sword was simply sinister to the extreme. Taking advantage of the moment when Chu Fengmian was busy fighting Ao Jianyuan, Yuan Kun suddenly attacked. Even Chu Fengmian didn't notice this sword strike. Only when Chu Fengmian did. When Chu Fengmian saw it, this sword light was already slashing toward him. "Little bastard, do you really think I'll let you do whatever you want? Today, I'll kill you. After I take all your adventures, the position of the commander of the Annihilation Legion will be mine." Yuan Kun's figure flashed and flew toward Chu Fengmian. His face was extremely excited, and his eyes were full of greed. Today, as long as he could kill Chu Fengmian and seize Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounter, then he would really be rich. Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounter was extremely shocking no matter who it was. He had been waiting for a long time for this opportunity to kill Chu Fengmian. Finally, when Chu Fengmian and Ao Jianyuan were fighting fiercely, Yuan Kun suddenly attacked. Although Yuan Kun's strength was only at the 5th tier of the divine power realm and wasn't very strong, this sudden sneak attack was fatal to Chu Fengmian. "Do you think I didn't foresee that you would attack?" Chu Fengmian's eyes were full of sneers. Although he had foreseen Yuan Kun's sneak attack, he didn't expect that Yuan Kun would find such a good opportunity. For a moment, Chu Fengmian was a little unprepared. However, Chu Fengmian wasn't without a trump card. Right in front of Chu Fengmian, the broken jar, the Emperor Jar, suddenly appeared. The Tao of the Human Emperor. Enlighten all living things. An extremely great power burst out from Chu Fengmian's body in an instant. The moment this power appeared, everyone present felt as if they were about to die. Under this power, no one could resist. Whoever dared to resist would be killed. Yuan Kun's sword light was also shattered by this force. Even Ao Jianyuan was no longer able to resist under this power. The All-Heaven Death Seal was engraved in the depths of his mind, and his whole person surrendered to Chu Fengmian. Originally, Chu Fengmian didn't intend to use the power of the Emperor Jar. But at this critical moment, Chu Fengmian still used it. In an instant, Chu Fengmian felt that his spiritual force was about to be sucked dry. He almost died from having his spiritual force sucked dry. Even with the divine pulse, Chu Fengmian still felt his strength depleted. It took 3 seconds for Chu Fengmian's spiritual power to gradually recover. Fortunately, under the power of the Emperor Jar, everyone present was shocked and didn't attack Chu Fengmian. Otherwise, just now, even if a wind-controlling realm martial artist came, he could easily kill Chu Fengmian. It's better to use the Emperor Jar as little as possible. At least before my strength can completely control it, I can't use it unless I'm in a desperate situation. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll be in danger. Chu Fengmian sighed inwardly. This time, the result of using the Emperor Jar was very similar to what Chu Fengmian had imagined. For a full 3 seconds, Chu Fengmian had no power to fight back. This was an extremely terrifying thing that made Chu Fengmian feel danger. If a saint suddenly appeared just now, he could kill Chu Fengmian on the spot. But this time, using the Emperor Jar also pushed Chu Fengmian to the limit. Yuan Kun's sword just now was very tricky. Chu Fengmian couldn't think of any other way to deal with it. Impossible. Just now, you clearly couldn't draw out any power. How could you resist my sword? Yuan Kun, who was hit by the Emperor Jar, slowly woke up. Looking at the unscathed Chu Fengmian in front of him, he was simply dumbfounded. He had waited for so long for such a good opportunity, but he didn't kill Chu Fengmian. The sudden appearance of this power caught him off guard. In an instant, his sneak attack was completely neutralized. He would never have guessed that Chu Fengmian had truly mastered the power of the Emperor Jar. That was an extreme immoral weapon. Even if it was a remnant, it wasn't something that a wind-controlling realm martial artist could control. Even a saint couldn't control it. Only a life-and-death realm expert could. Yuan-kun, you dare to sneak attack me? Very well, killing you is too easy for you. Chu Fengmian looked at Yuan-kun, the anger in his heart reaching the extreme. He was almost attacked by Yuan-kun. If he didn't have the Emperor Jar, he would have been seriously injured, if not killed. He probably couldn't subdue Aozhen Yuan and could only run away. Even running away might not be possible. There were so many experts of the Annihilation Legion present. If they saw Chu Fengmian seriously injured, they would beat him up. All of Chu Fengmian's plans were almost ruined because of Yuan-kun, which made Chu Fengmian really angry. Except for the time when Fang Xiandao kidnapped Han Yueli to threaten Chu Fengmian, which made Chu Fengmian really angry, this was the second time. Chu Fengmian usually didn't get angry, but once he got angry, he was even more terrifying than the ancient war dragon. Marrow extraction, bone refining, demon refining skill. Countless white flames appeared in Chu Fengmian's hand. He made a grabbing motion with his other hand, and Yuan-kun was caught in Chu Fengmian's hand like an ant. Yuan-kun had been seriously injured by the power of the Emperor Jar. Now in Chu Fengmian's hand, he didn't have any strength to resist. Kill me! Kill me if you have the ability! Yuan-kun shouted crazily. Now that his sneak attack failed and he fell into Chu Fengmian's hands, he was ready to die. His hatred for Chu Fengmian was endless. Even if he died, he didn't want to beg for mercy from Chu Fengmian. Kill you? Do you think I'll let you die so easily? I'll make you beg for death. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. The killing intent in his eyes was chilling. Even the Bloodkill Prince, who was acquainted with Chu Fengmian, was terrified when he saw Chu Fengmian's eyes. He subconsciously took a few steps back. He didn't expect that Chu Fengmian, who usually looked very calm, would have such a terrifying side. Refine. Chu Fengmian's face was cold. He looked at Yuan-kun and waved his hand. Yuan-kun's bones were broken one by one. His bone marrow was extracted and burned crazily under the white flames. His entire body was thrown into the white flames, and he began to burn madly to refine it. Ah! Yuan-kun screamed crazily. There are 5 chapters today. I'm not in a good state today. I'll update tomorrow. I've been updating for several days. I'll take a break. Chapter 342. The pain was unbearable. Not only his body, but even his soul was being burned by the flame. The burning of the soul was thousands of times more painful than the burning of the body. The flame was not the flame of the search, but the real demonic flame that could burn the soul. Not only did the demonic flame not refine Yuan-kun's soul, but it was also refining his soul, making it stronger and stronger. It was about to merge with his body. Chu Fengmian wanted to refine Yuan-kun's soul and body into a spiritual weapon, making him suffer endless pain for the rest of his life. No! What are you doing? Are you going to refine me into a spiritual weapon? At this moment, Yuan-kun suddenly understood what Chu Fengmian was trying to do. Chu Fengmian was actually going to refine his physical body and soul into a spiritual weapon. This made him, who was originally unafraid of death, panic. Yuan-kun was not afraid of death, but if he were to be refined into a spiritual weapon by Chu Fengmian, it would be 1,000 times more painful than death. If he were to be refined into a spiritual weapon, Yuan-kun would be immortal. However, he would be burned by the demonic flame all the time, and he would never be able to return to his original state. Immortality was the dream of everyone. But to Yuan-kun, it was a nightmare. Demon! You're definitely a demon. How dare you use such evil means? Damn it! The royal family of the Qin Empire has invited such a demon here. It's like inviting a wolf into the house. What are you waiting for? Kill him quickly. Yuan Kun shouted crazily at the people around him. However, his shouts were meaningless. No one present dared to move. Now that Commander Ao Jianyuan had been enslaved by Chu Fengmian, no one dared to go against Chu Fengmian. If they went against Chu Fengmian now, they would probably end up like Yuan Kun. They would be refined into a spiritual weapon and suffer for the rest of their lives. You still have the strength to shout. It seems that the refining strength is not enough. Hearing Yuan Kun's shouts, Chu Fengmian's mind moved. The demonic flame surged, and Yuan Kun could only cry out in pain. His soul and fleshly body were about to fuse into one. Young Master Chu, Senior Chu, please let me go. As long as you're willing to let me go, I'm willing to plant a restriction on myself and become your slave for the rest of my life. I'll never betray you. Yuan Kun screamed as he shouted. He was not afraid of death, but in the face of this endless pain, he could only beg for mercy. Unfortunately, even though he was begging for mercy, Chu Fengmian's expression didn't change at all. Chu Fengmian had never shown mercy to his enemies. No matter how Yuan Kun begged for mercy, Chu Fengmian's expression remained grave and stern. The devil flame in his hand continued to burn. Finally, after an unknown day and night, Yuan Kun's soul and physical body had completely fused as one, turning into a black jade pearl, the demon refining pearl. Prince of Bloodkill, this demon refining orb is a gift to you. Accompany me for the next few days as a reward. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and the demon refining orb flew towards the Bloodkill prince. Prince Bloodkill was overjoyed when he received the demon refining orb. The demon refining orb's power was at least comparable to a mid-grade Earth-grade spirit artifact. For Prince of Bloodkill, there weren't many mid-grade Earth-grade spirit artifacts. This demon refining orb was enough to increase his strength by a lot. However, when he deeply felt Yuan Kun's continuous screams from within the demon refining orb, he still felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, he hadn't chosen to be Chu Fengmian's enemy. Otherwise, he might have suffered the same fate as Yuan Kun. Now, the Destruction Legion has submitted to the imperial family. Who still refuses to obey? Chu Fengmian stood up and sat on the highest golden throne. He looked down at the countless higher-ups of the Destruction Legion and said coldly, "We're willing to submit." Commander Ao Jianyuan was the first to kneel. He knelt in front of Chu Fengmian with both hands on the ground. Now that Chu Fengmian had planted the heavenly death seal on him, he had submitted to Chu Fengmian wholeheartedly. No matter what, he couldn't rebel. As Ao Jianyuan knelt on the ground, the countless experts of the Destruction Legion also knelt on the ground. Even Ao Jianyuan wasn't Chu Fengmian's opponent. Who could resist Chu Fengmian's majesty? One by one, they knelt on the ground to show their submission. Good. You've all worked for me. Of course, I won't mistreat you. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and countless drops of golden blood appeared, just like in the Qin Shi Huang Legion. These drops of blood were the blood essence of the ancient war dragon. Chu Fengmian directly gave them to the higher-ups of the Destruction Legion. Although the higher-ups of the Destruction Legion knew that this was Chu Fengmian's way of controlling them, none of them dared to resist. If they resisted Chu Fengmian now, they would only die. It was better to be controlled by Chu Fengmian. However, when they refined the blood essence of the ancient war dragon and felt the earth-shaking changes in their bodies, the resentment in their hearts suddenly disappeared. The primordial war dragon's blood essence had brought them too many benefits. Everyone's strength had improved tremendously. Under the power of the ancient war dragon's blood essence, the vitality of a few elderly experts was awakened, and all of them became much younger. Thank you for your reward, Commander. Countless experts knelt on the ground and shouted in unison. They knelt down and said loyally, "All of you, leave now. Go and train the soldiers. Prepare for war at any time." Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and everyone left, leaving only Ao Jianyuan behind. Even the Bloodkiller Grand Prince left. "Let's go. Take me to the treasury of the Destruction Legion." Chu Fengmian looked at Ao Jianyuan and said, "Yes." Ao Jianyuan bowed his head respectfully. Then, he led Chu Fengmian to the treasury of the Destruction Legion. The Destruction Legion wasn't a poor place like the Qin Shi Huang Legion. The Qin Shi Huang Legion was only a vassal of the imperial family. They didn't have much wealth, so Chu Fengmian didn't care about it. However, the Destruction Legion was the local tyrant. They occupied the ancient city of Shou province, so they must have accumulated a lot of wealth. In order to break through, Chu Fengmian had used up all the rare items he had. Now, he naturally needed to collect more wealth. His battle dragon spell was like a bottomless pit. No matter how much wealth he had, Chu Fengmian wouldn't complain about having too much. Young master, the treasury of the Destruction Legion is just ahead. Ao Jianwang took Chu Fengmian to another space. Chu Fengmian looked around and saw countless 9 cauldron pills. First update of the day. Chapter 343. These 9 cauldron pills were piled up into mountains. Each mountain had at least 1 billion pills. At a glance, there were dozens of mountains piled up with 9 cauldron pills. As far as the eye could see, the 9 cauldron pills had formed a mountain peak. Even Chu Fengmian, who possessed countless wealth, was stunned when he saw this scene. The Destruction Legion was worthy of being the overlord of the southern part of the Qin Empire for thousands of years. They had actually accumulated so much wealth. However, Chu Fengmian soon came to his senses. The Destruction Legion had accumulated so many pills over thousands of years. Although the 9 cauldron pills can no longer increase my strength, I can still use them to exchange for rare items. With such a huge amount of wealth, I can buy any rare item in the future. Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed with a smile. The Qin Empire was indeed a blessed land. In the Wuxing country, Chu Fengmian might not have been able to obtain so many 9 cauldron pills even if he had accumulated them for 1,000 years. These 9 cauldron pills were placed in the treasury of the Destruction Legion. Chu Fengmian naturally wouldn't let them go. With a wave of his hand, 2/3 of the mountain of 9 cauldron pills disappeared. A total of 50 billion 9 cauldron pills were all stored in Chu Fengmian's empty ring. Chu Fengmian's empty ring was completely filled with 9 cauldron pills. This wealth was enough to make countless peak saints go crazy. Plundering was indeed the easiest way to obtain wealth. Chu Fengmian's actions were simply robbing the entire Destruction Legion. In addition to the 9 cauldron pills, Chu Fengmian also picked some rare items that were beneficial to him and took them all. As for the remaining 9 cauldron pills, Chu Fengmian left them here to cover the daily expenses of the Destruction Legion. Let's go! After obtaining such wealth, Chu Fengmian's heart was extremely happy. It could be said that Chu Fengmian was really rich now. If there were any rare items that were beneficial to him in the future, he could just buy them. As long as there were enough rare items, Chu Fengmian's strength could continue to rise. He might even break through to the Divine Power realm. The Destruction Legion that had been subdued this time really had endless benefits. The gate of the Destruction Legion's treasury closed once again. Chu Fengmian and Ao Jianwang left the space and returned to the ancient city of Shou province. As soon as Chu Fengmian returned to the ancient city of Shou prefecture, he immediately noticed some abnormalities. The leaders of the Shatter Legion were all gathered outside the palace. In addition to the higher-ups of the Shatter Legion, there were also a dozen saints gathered outside. The two sides seemed to be in a standoff. What happened? Chu Fengmian's figure flashed and appeared outside the palace. Who are these people? Outside the palace, there were more than 10 unfamiliar saints. Their strength wasn't any weaker than that of the Shatter Legion's higher-ups. Among them, the strongest few were at the 6th level of the Divine Force realm. Although they weren't as strong as Ao Jianwang, they were strong enough to go against Feng Yan and the other vice-commanders. Young Master. Seeing Chu Fengmian appear, the upper echelons of the Annihilation Legion breathed a sigh of relief. Young Master, these people are the sect leaders and elders of the big sects in the ancient city of Shou province. They've heard that you've captured the Shattering Legion and are preparing to join forces with the Imperial family. They've caused a ruckus, Feng Yan said helplessly as he looked at Chu Fengmian. Most of them have followed the Shatter Legion and are used to being local tyrants. Now that they've heard that we're going to be controlled by the Imperial family, they want to expel the Shatter Legion from the ancient city of Shou province. We have no way to deal with them. Although the Shatter Legion was the strongest force in the ancient city of Shou province, there were still some powerful sects and forces in the ancient city of Shou province. When these sects and forces joined forces, they weren't any weaker than the Shatter Legion. Now that they'd heard that the Shatter Legion had been subdued by Chu Fengmian, they'd colluded and joined forces. Young master? You want the Shatter Legion to submit to the Imperial family? You want the ancient city of Shou province to be controlled by the Imperial family? Hearing Feng Yan's words, the group of saints all looked at Chu Fengmian. One of the young saints said rudely, "We don't care about the Shatter Legion, but the ancient city of Shou province doesn't belong to the Shatter Legion. Now, take the Shatter Legion and get out of the ancient city of Shou province." The ancient city of Shou province is now under the control of the Shou Province Alliance. They'd heard that the Imperial family had sent people to subdue the Shatter Legion, but they didn't know how they'd done it. However, judging from Chu Fengmian's cultivation base, which was only at the wind-controlling realm, it was obvious that the Imperial family had promised him some benefits to make the Shatter Legion join forces with the Imperial family. These people were used to being local tyrants in the ancient city of Shou province. Now that they'd heard that the ancient city of Shou province was going to be under the control of the Imperial family, they'd joined forces and made a scene. They wanted to take over the ancient city of Shou province. The Shou Province Alliance was formed by dozens of forces, big and small, in the ancient city of Shou province. Now, they wanted to expel the Shatter Legion so that they could occupy the ancient city of Shou province. That's right. Kid, take the Shatter Legion and get out of the ancient city of Shou province. Otherwise, we'll have to use force today. Another saint suddenly spoke. You lackey of the Imperial family, get out of here. Our ancient city of Shou province has always been independent. We've never been under the control of the Imperial family. Now that the Shatter Legion has subdued the Imperial family, they're no longer qualified to be the master of the ancient city of Shou province. Now, the Shatter Legion can get out of here. Several saints of the Shou Province Alliance spoke out one after another. Each and every one of them was fearless and arrogant when they spoke. The Shou Province Alliance was an alliance of all the major forces and sects in the ancient city of Shou province. Now, it was even stronger than the Shatter Legion. They could take advantage of this opportunity to expel the Shatter Legion and become the true master of the ancient city of Shou province. The saint who spoke first was even more arrogant. He pointed at Chu Fengmian and shouted loudly, "Kid, I'll give you 3 seconds to choose. Take your people and get out of here, or let us kick all of you out." Chu Fengmian's face was calm as he asked Feng Yan, who was next to him. "Who is this person?" Feng Yan replied respectfully, "Young master, this person is the sect master of the Nine Suns sect in the ancient city of Shou province. Sect leader of the Nine Suns sect. Well, it seems like you're the one who brought your people to cause trouble. Today, there's no need for the Nine Suns sect to exist in the ancient city of Shou province. Feng Yan, take your people and annihilate the Nine Suns sect. Kill everyone in the Nine Suns sect." Chu Fengmian said coldly. His words were filled with endless killing intent. Those who obeyed him would prosper, and those who opposed him would perish. Anyone who dared to resist Chu Fengmian would die. Chapter 344. You want to annihilate our Nine Suns sect? Ridiculous. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the Nine Suns sect master laughed instead of getting angry. Our Shou Province Alliance is here. Kid, do you think you can cover the sky with one hand? Today, I want to see how you can annihilate our Nine Suns sect. The Nine Suns sect master's face was full of mockery. Their Shou Province Alliance had gathered the power of the entire Shou Province. He didn't believe that Chu Fengmian could do anything to them. Is that so? Today, I will kill you, the sect master, and then annihilate your Nine Suns sect. I will make all your disciples accompany you. Chu Fengmian sneered. His body moved, and he rushed toward the Nine Suns Sect Master. Suddenly, he struck out a palm at the Nine Suns Sect Master. An ant in the wind-controlling realm dares to attack me? The Nine Suns Sect Master looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed loudly. A Imperial Wind Realm warrior was just an ant before a true saint. Although he was only at the second level of the Divine Power Realm, a saint who had just stepped into the Divine Power Realm, he still hadn't fully familiarized himself with the power of a saint. However, in front of an Imperial Wind Realm warrior, he was still an unreachable expert. Kid, do you really think that you can be arrogant just because you have the support of the Imperial family? Let me tell you, the Imperial family is useless in the Shou Province ancient city. Today, I will kill you. I will tell the Imperial family that our Shou Province ancient city is no longer under their control. Seeing Chu Fengmian's attack, the Nine Suns Sect Master sneered and moved his feet. In an instant, his body rushed toward Chu Fengmian, and he struck out a palm at Chu Fengmian. His attack was very casual, and he didn't put Chu Fengmian in his eyes at all. He wanted to kill Chu Fengmian with his palm. Trash, you can't even see through my strength. How dare you resist? Die. I will completely annihilate you. I will also let your Shou Province Alliance see the consequences of resisting me. Suddenly, the power of Chu Fengmian's palm burst out. In the sky, the two palms collided. The power of the Nine Suns Sect Master was easily broken. The power of Chu Fengmian's palm didn't stop, and it struck toward the Nine Suns Sect Master. He wanted to kill the Nine Suns Sect leader with a single palm strike. What? The Sect Master of the Nine Suns Sect had never expected to lose in one move. Chu Fengmian, a mere wind-resisting realm martial artist, actually had such power. He made a prompt decision and condensed another wave of energy, attacking Chu Fengmian. Nine Suns Palm. This palm was their Nine Suns Sect's strongest martial skill. Instantly, the entire sky turned into a clump of raging flames. That palm contained extremely frightening raging flames. The Nine Suns Sect leader is truly enraged. Fighting against a martial artist of the wind-resisting realm, losing in one move is definitely the shame of his life. If I kill this kid today, I'm afraid I won't be able to explain it to the royal family. It doesn't matter. Now that the Imperial family is fighting against Family Zhao, as long as we control the Shou Province Alliance, the Imperial family won't dare to deal with us. When the time comes, we can even establish our own country. What are you afraid of? One by one, the saints of the Shou Province Alliance began to discuss. The way they looked at Chu Fengmian was no different from looking at a dead man. A saint going all out to deal with a martial artist of the wind-resisting realm, there was no other outcome. One by one, they began to discuss how to deal with the aftermath of killing Chu Fengmian. However, the next scream broke everyone's train of thought, because the person who screamed wasn't Chu Fengmian, but the Nine Suns Sect leader. The Nine Suns Sect leader's Nine Suns palm was instantly destroyed by Chu Fengmian's palm strike. The Nine Suns Sect leader was now caught in Chu Fengmian's hand. His legs kicked in the air, and his face was full of fear. He never imagined that a martial artist of the wind-resisting realm, who was like an ant in his eyes, would have such terrifying strength. He had defeated him with a single move and even captured him. Countless experts of the Shou Province Alliance were in disbelief when they saw this scene. Although the Nine Suns Sect leader could only be regarded as below average among the saints of the Shou Province Alliance, it didn't make sense that he would be defeated by a martial artist of the wind-resisting realm. Wasn't it said that everyone below the saint realm was an ant? How could Chu Fengmian's strength be so terrifying? Damn it, this kid hid his strength. Let's attack together and save the Nine Suns Sect leader. A middle-aged saint of the Shou Province Alliance immediately reacted and roared. Following his roar, about 5 saints of the Shou Province Alliance jumped out from the crowd and attacked Chu Fengmian with martial arts techniques. A bunch of trash. You want to fight me by joining forces? All of you, die! Chu Fengmian moved his palm, and the Nine Suns Sect leader was crushed in his palm. His saint blood essence was all devoured by Chu Fengmian. At the same time, Chu Fengmian attacked again. His two hands suddenly turned into two huge dragon claws. As soon as the dragon claws appeared, the sky and earth changed color. The countless martial arts techniques of the five saints couldn't shake Chu Fengmian's two dragon claws. The corners of Chu Fengmian's mouth curled into a disdainful smile. The two dragon claws violently slapped at the five saints. Almost in an instant, the five saints screamed. They were all killed by Chu Fengmian, and the saint blood essence in their bodies was devoured by Chu Fengmian. In just an instant, the five saints, including the Nine Sons sect leader, had all died in Chu Fengmian's hands. This was a saint, not an ant. Every saint was a figure that could turn the world upside down. No matter which country they went to, they would be treated with respect. But now, these saints were like ants in Chu Fengmian's hands. They were killed in a single move. Countless people who saw this almost fainted in fright. They couldn't help but gasp for breath. They were all scared out of their wits. What kind of strength was this? He killed 6 saints with a wave of his hand. This kind of strength was terrifying to the extreme. Could it be that this guy really defeated the Shattering Legion single-handedly, and that's why they surrendered? Some of the experts in the ancient city of Shou province thought to themselves. Rumor had it that Chu Fengmian had defeated the Shatter Legion all by himself, which was how he had subdued them. But this rumor was disdained by countless people. The Destruction Legion was so powerful that it was impossible for one person to subdue it. But now, seeing Chu Fengmian's strength, the people present all thought of this rumor in their hearts. Today, if Chu Fengmian really had the strength to subdue the Destruction Legion with his own strength, then, this time, it wouldn't be so easy to deal with. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.